A widowed millionaire decides to hide in the corridors of his own mansion to discover how his new wife truly treated his triplets. But in the silence of the night, he witnesses an unthinkable coldness as the babies cry desperately without receiving any affection. It is then that a young nanny appears by chance and, with a natural instinct, reveals the truth the wife was trying to cover up. And her presence ignites a tension that could unmask the perfect woman and change the destiny of that family forever. The rain was crashing down on New York City with a fury that seemed to want to wash the entire city away. Eleanor Ellie Vance held the handlebars of the borrowed scooter tightly, feeling the cold water run down her neck and soak the red uniform of the delivery company. Her fingers trembled as she checked the address on her phone, which kept slipping from its wet plastic protector. Park Avenue, number 423, the Upper East Side. A neighborhood she only knew from passing through, where the townhouses were so grand. They looked like hotels and the walls so high they hid entire worlds. The ornate iron gate opened automatically when she pressed the intercom, revealing a cobblestone driveway that snaked up to an imposing mansion. Ellie swallowed hard. 3 stories of glass and white marble, illuminated by chandeliers that shone through the windows like fallen stars. She parked the scooter near the side entrance, where a discreet awning offered some protection from the storm. She carefully took out the insulated bag. Japanese food. The order had cost over $500, almost the value of the rent for the cramped apartment she shared with her mother in the Bronx. Before she could ring the doorbell, the door opened. A tall, elegant woman appeared, wearing a cream-colored silk robe that probably cost 3 months of Ellie's salary. Perfectly styled blonde hair fell over her shoulders, immaculate red nails, an artificial tan. Victoria Beaumont Sterling. Ellie didn't need to know her to recognize the type. She had delivered food to dozens of women like her, always with that air of superiority, that gaze that looked through common people as if they were invisible. Victoria snatched the bag from Ellie's hands without a word of thanks. She examined the contents with a disdainful expression, as if looking for flaws. "It's all there." "Ma'am?" Ellie assured, trying to keep her voice steady despite the cold that made her teeth want to chatter. "Sushi, sashimi, the special combo, and the desserts. Everything as ordered." Victoria didn't even look at her. She simply turned her back and went inside, leaving the door ajar. Ellie stood there unsure if she should leave or wait. The storm was getting worse, lightning cutting across the dark sky. She needed that tip. Every dollar made a difference, especially now that her mother's medication had gone up in price again. Diabetes was an expensive disease, and the public health system was always short on insulin. That's when she heard it. A cry, no, 3 cries. 3 babies crying at the same time, a sound so desperate and piercing it made Ellie's heart stop for a moment. The noise was coming from the 2nd floor, cutting through the mansion's thick walls like a cry for help. She knew that kind of cry. She had taken care of her little sister, Sophie, when she was a child, before everything happened. Before that terrible night, they took the little girl to the hospital, but it was too late. High fever, seizures, a tiny body fighting an infection that could have been treated if they'd had money for a private doctor, if they hadn't waited so long in line at the public clinic. Ellie closed her eyes, trying to push the memories away. But the crying continued, getting more and more distressing. Where was the mother of these children? Why was no one responding? She looked inside the mansion. The foyer was immense, with a marble floor that reflected the light of a crystal chandelier suspended from the ceiling. A curved staircase led to the upper floors. Absolute silence, except for the cries that seemed to echo through the walls. She shouldn't. She knew she shouldn't, but her feet moved before her mind could stop them. She entered the house, leaving wet tracks on the immaculate floor. She climbed the first few steps of the staircase, her heart pounding. The crying grew louder with each step. 2nd floor. A long hallway with dark wood doors on both sides. Expensive paintings on the walls. Chinese porcelain vases on pedestals. And that desperate crying coming from one of the doors at the end. Ellie opened the door slowly. The room was huge, decorated in pastel shades of blue and green. 3 white cribs arranged in a semicircle, each with a squirming baby. its face red from crying. Triplets. They couldn't be more than 6 months old. One had his little face covered in tears and snot. Another was thrashing so hard he seemed to be trying to climb the crib bars. The third had a visibly soiled diaper and irritated skin. "Where's your mommy, my loves?" Ellie whispered, approaching. The sight of those abandoned babies, alone, crying until they had no strength left, broke something inside her. Memories of Sophie flooded her mind. Her little sister, in her arms, so warm, so quiet, while they waited for hours in the crowded emergency room. She reached out and gently touched the nearest baby's face. The child calmed a little at the human contact, his red eyes fixing on Ellie's face. A boy. She picked him up, feeling the small, warm body against her chest. He grabbed her finger with surprising strength, like someone clinging to a life raft in the middle of the ocean. "It's okay. It's okay now," she murmured, rocking him gently. His cries subsided into sobs. She looked at the other two, still crying. Desperately. How could she help all three at once? That's when she heard footsteps in the hall, quick, impatient. The door flew open, and Victoria appeared, her face twisted into an expression that Ellie took a few seconds to identify. It wasn't concern. It wasn't relief that someone was helping. It was pure rage. "What do you think you're doing?" Victoria's voice cracked like a whip. She crossed the room in 3 long strides, snatching the baby from Ellie's arms with such force that the child started crying again. "Who gave you permission to come in here? Who gave you permission to touch my things?" My things. She had called the baby a thing. Ellie felt her stomach churn. "I heard them crying, Mom. They were alone. They needed help. I just what? Invaded my home." Victoria placed the baby back in the crib, without any care, like setting down a bag of groceries. The child's head hit the padded side, and his crying intensified. "You have no right to be here. I'm calling the police. I'll make you lose this ridiculous job." "Please, I just wanted to help." Ellie backed away, her hands raised in a gesture of surrender. Her eyes, however, couldn't look away from the babies. All 3 were now crying in a distressing chorus. "They need care, clean diapers, maybe food." "You don't tell me what my children need." Victoria advanced, and Ellie saw something in her eyes that terrified her. An emptiness, a coldness that didn't fit the situation. This woman wasn't worried about the children. She was just furious at being discovered. 3 things happened at once. The babies cried even louder. A clap of thunder exploded outside, making the house shake, and a man's voice echoed from the hallway. "Victoria, what's going on?" A man appeared in the doorway, tall, dark hair starting to grey at the temples, wearing an expensive suit even at this hour of the night. Tired eyes that widened at the scene. Ellie, drenched and frightened. Victoria with her face red with rage, and the 3 babies crying as if the world were ending. "Arthur!" Victoria's expression changed in a split second. The fury gave way to a look of an outraged victim. "This delivery girl broke into our house. She went into the baby's room without permission. I found her touching them. I don't know what she was planning to do." Arthur Sterling looked from Victoria to Ellie, and then to the babies. Something flickered in his eyes, something Ellie couldn't decipher. Concern? Doubt? He approached the cribs, watching his crying sons. "Are they all right?" His voice was low, too controlled, like someone making a huge effort to stay calm. "They are now, thank God I got here in time." Victoria wrapped her arm around his, possessively. "I don't know what this girl wanted. She brought the food and just walked into the house. I'm going to sue her company." Ellie opened her mouth to defend herself, but the words died in her throat when she saw Arthur's expression. He was staring at her as if trying to read her soul. And then he did something unexpected. He walked over to her, keeping his voice low enough for Victoria not to hear completely. "Why did you come upstairs?" The question was simple, but loaded with meaning. Ellie took a deep breath. "I heard them crying. No one was coming. I lost my little sister because no one helped her in time. I couldn't just stand by and listen to babies crying like that." She saw something change in his face, a tension in his shoulders, a clenching of his jaw. Arthur looked at Victoria, who was watching the scene with her arms crossed and an impatient expression, and then back at Ellie. "What do you do for work, besides deliveries?" The question caught her off guard. Anything, sir. I clean houses in the morning, do deliveries in the afternoon and at night. I need the money for my mother's medicine." "Arthur, what are you doing?" Victoria approached, her voice harsh. "Send this girl away, call the police." "No." The answer was firm. Arthur took his wallet out of his pocket and handed several bills to Ellie, for the delivery and for the trouble. Then, surprisingly, he took out a business card and wrote something on the back. "Come back tomorrow at 8 p.m. Back door. I have a job proposal." "Arthur," Victoria practically shouted. "It's my house, Victoria, my children, my decision." He didn't raise his voice, but there was a steely tone that made the woman back down. Something had shifted between them in that moment, an almost imperceptible crack in a facade that Ellie suspected was much more fragile than it appeared. Ellie took the money and the card with trembling hands. She glanced one last time at the babies, who were starting to calm down now that there were adults in the room, and then at Arthur. There was something in his eyes, a silent plea, a cry for help he couldn't verbalize. "Tomorrow at 8, she confirmed, tucking the card into the wet pocket of her uniform. She went down the stairs almost at a run, her heart racing. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but Ellie barely felt the rain. She got on her scooter and took off, the wheels sliding on the wet cobblestones. Only when she was far away on the FDR drive did she allow herself to look at the card she was clutching in her hand. Arthur Sterling, CEO of Sterling Holdings, and on the back, in a hurried script, "Please, come back. I need someone who truly cares." Ellie didn't know it yet, but those words would change her life completely. As she drove back to the Bronx, moving from one world to another in a matter of minutes, a single question hammered in her head. What was so wrong in that perfect mansion, that a rich and powerful man needed to ask a complete stranger for help? The answer would come soon, and it would be far more disturbing than she could ever imagine. Because in the coming weeks, Ellie would discover that some prisons have bars of gold, and that the most desperate screams sometimes come from mouths too small to form words. She would discover that evil doesn't always wear dirty clothes, and that courage doesn't always come wrapped in muscles and money. But most of all, she would discover that sometimes God puts people in the right place at the right time, not by chance, but because someone needs to be willing to hear a cry that everyone else has chosen to ignore. And Eleanor Vance, the girl who grew up promising to never again stay silent while a child suffered, was about to fulfill that promise in a way she never imagined possible. Ellie arrived home close to midnight, her bones aching and her mind buzzing. The two-room apartment in the Bronx was dark, with only the faint light of the television seeping from under the curtain that divided the bedroom. She leaned the scooter she'd borrowed from her neighbor, Mr. Rossi, against the wall, locked it with the rusty padlock, and pushed open the wooden door that creaked on its hinges. "Honey?" Her mother Helen's voice came from the bedroom. "Are you okay? What time is it?" "I'm fine, Mum. Just tired." Ellie took off her helmet and wet uniform, changing into an old t-shirt and a torn pair of sweatpants. She entered the small bedroom where her mother was lying on the double bed that took up most of the space. Helen Miller was only 52, but she looked 70. Diabetes had taken its toll. Swollen legs, tired eyes, a permanent fatigue that no amount of sleep could cure. "Did you get many deliveries today?" "I did." Ellie sat on the edge of the bed, taking off her wet socks. "And something strange happened, Mum. Something I don't know if it's good or bad." She told her about the mansion, the crying babies, the cold woman, the man who offered her a job. Helen listened in silence, her calloused hands resting on the thin blanket. "Are you going back there tomorrow?" "I have to, Mom. He said he has a proposal. Maybe it's a steady job, something better than these deliveries in the rain. And the money he gave me today." Ellie pulled the crumpled bills from her pocket. It was $500, just for a tip. "This pays for this month's medicine." Helen took the money and examined it, as if she couldn't believe it was real. Tears filled her eyes. "My girl, you work so hard. So hard. I didn't want your life to be like this." "Don't say that, Mum." Ellie hugged the woman, feeling the prominent bones beneath her skin. "We're going to be okay, I promise." But that night, lying on the thin mattress on the living room floor, Ellie couldn't sleep. She stared at the cracked ceiling, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood. Loud music from a party, dogs barking, voices arguing on the street. And in her mind, over and over, the image of those 3 babies crying, abandoned in expensive cribs while a woman who was supposed to love them ignored them completely. She thought of Sophie. Her little sister was only 3 when she got sick, a fever that wouldn't break, vomiting, seizures. They waited for hours at the local clinic, then more hours at the ER, and by the time they finally got an ambulance to the bigger hospital, it was too late. Ellie was only 12, but she never forgot Sophie's eyes looking at her, asking for help that didn't come in time. She swore that day she would never again stand by and watch a child suffer. And now fate had put her in that exact situation again. But this time she wasn't a helpless girl. This time she could do something. The next day, Ellie spent the entire day in a state of anxiety. She made her deliveries on autopilot, her mind elsewhere, counting the hours. At 7 in the evening, she took a cold shower under the dripping showerhead, put on her best clothes, a pair of jeans without rips and a simple white blouse, and took the bus that would take her to the Upper East Side. She got off 2 stops early to save money on the return trip, walking the last few blocks. The night was clear now, the sky swept clean after the storm. The streets of the wealthy neighborhood were quiet, tree-lined, each house more impressive than the last. Ellie felt out of place there, as if someone would appear at any moment and ask what a girl from the Bronx was doing in that part of the city. She arrived at the mansion at exactly 8. She walked around the high wall until she found the back door, a discreet entrance near what looked like the garage. She rang the bell and waited, her heart pounding. The door opened almost immediately. Arthur Sterling was there, dressed casually this time in khaki pants and a navy blue polo shirt. He looked tired, with deep circles under his eyes. "You came." There was genuine relief in his voice. "Please, come in." Ellie entered a narrow hallway that contrasted with the opulence of the main entrance. The smell of detergent, simple white walls. The service area. Arthur led her to a small kitchenette with a 4-person table and Formica cabinets. "Please, sit." He pulled out a chair for her before sitting on the other side of the table. "Thank you for coming. I know yesterday was complicated." "You owe me an explanation, sir," Ellie said, surprising herself with her own courage. "Why did you call me here? What's really going on in this house?" Arthur ran a hand over his face, a gesture of extreme exhaustion. "My sons, James, Thomas, and Oliver. They were born 5 months ago. My first wife, Clara, she passed away during childbirth. Complications. It was all so fast. Suddenly I was alone with 3 newborns and a hole in my chest so big I thought it would swallow me whole." "I'm so sorry," Ellie said, and she meant it. "I met Victoria 3 months later at a charity event. She was everything Clara wasn't. Confident, decisive, practical. She said she could help me, that she knew how to handle children, that her family had experience with twins. I was desperate, exhausted, drowning in diapers and bottles and sleepless nights. I married her 6 weeks ago." "And now?" Arthur stood up, walked to the window overlooking the backyard. He stood there, his back tense. "Now I wake up in the middle of the night and hear my sons crying. I go downstairs to see what's happening and find Victoria sleeping soundly despite the noise. Or I wake up and the house is completely silent, too silent. And when I go to check, I find she's given the baby sleeping medicine. Medicine no pediatrician prescribed." Ellie's stomach turned. "Did you confront her?" "I did." He returned to the table, resting his hands on the surface. "She said I was being paranoid, that it was just a natural calming aid, that all parents use it. She showed me articles online, testimonials. She made it seem like I was crazy for worrying. And I wanted to believe her. I wanted so badly to believe I had made the right choice." "But you don't believe her anymore?" "No, not after what I saw yesterday." Arthur looked directly into Ellie's eyes. "I was hiding in the hallway. I Saw everything. I saw how she ignored my sons, how she talked about them, and I saw how you, a complete stranger, cared for them with more affection in 5 minutes than she has shown in weeks. Ellie felt a chill. He was hiding. He saw everything and did nothing. Why didn't you intervene? Because I need proof. Arthur clenched his fists. Victoria comes from a powerful family. The Beaumonts have lawyers, connections, influence. If I accuse her without solid evidence, she'll destroy my reputation, claim I'm a negligent father, that I'm having a nervous breakdown. And she might try to get custody of my sons, or worse, convince a judge they'd be better off institutionalized while I sort out my psychological problems. That's insane. It's reality when there's a lot of money involved. Sterling Holdings is worth over $300 million. Half of it would be hers in a divorce thanks to the community property agreement we signed, and she knows it. Ellie processed all of it. It was much worse than she had imagined. And where do I fit into this? Arthur took a deep breath. Victoria has decided to hire a nanny. She said she's overwhelmed, that she needs help at night. She's already interviewed 3 candidates from expensive agencies. Older, experienced women with impeccable references. She rejected them all, said she didn't trust them. And she trusts me? No. But you annoyed her. Yesterday, when you came upstairs without permission, when you showed more concern for the babies than she ever has, something changed. She sees you as someone inferior, someone she can control and manipulate. Someone who, if something goes wrong, no one will believe. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Arthur took an envelope from his pocket and placed it on the table. I'm offering you the job of night nanny, from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., Monday through Saturday. $15,000 a month, plus transportation and meals. You'd have a room here in the service area, and your only duty would be to take care of my sons during the night. $15,000. Ellie felt her head spin. It was almost 10 times what she earned, breaking her back at 3 jobs. But there's more, Arthur continued, his voice low. I need you to observe everything. Every interaction Victoria has with the children, every medication she wants you to give them, every strange instruction. And I need you to document it. Photos, videos if possible, detailed notes. You want me to be your spy. I want you to be the eyes I can't be. During the day I have meetings, appointments, trips. I can't be here 24 hours, but you can. At night, when Victoria thinks no one is watching, when she lets her guard down, that's when the truth comes out. Ellie looked at the envelope, then at Arthur. There was desperation in his eyes, but also something that bothered her. Cowardice. He was asking her to do what he didn't have the courage to do himself, to confront his own wife, to protect his own children. And if she finds out what I'm doing, I'll protect you. How? Hiding in the hallway? The blow hit its mark. Arthur flinched as if he'd been slapped. I know how this looks. I know I'm a coward. But they're my sons, you understand? If I mess this up, if I act rashly, and she manages to take them from me, I'll never forgive myself. I need to do this right. I need evidence that no lawyer can dispute. Ellie picked up the envelope. Inside was a simple 1-page contract. Everything was very straightforward, no strange clauses, and a $5,000 advance in cash. $5,000. Her mother's complete treatment for 3 months. Good food on the table. Maybe even fix the leaky roof. She thought of the babies. James, Thomas, and Oliver, 3 helpless creatures who didn't ask to be born into a mansion full of secrets and lies, 3 babies who deserved someone who truly cared. I accept, but on one condition, which is, if at any point I think they are in real, immediate danger, I will act. I won't wait for proof. I won't wait for lawyers. I'll do whatever it takes to protect them. Arthur hesitated, then nodded. Fair enough. When can you start? Tomorrow night. I need to give notice at my other jobs. Get things organized at home. Perfect. Arthur extended his hand and they shook. Thank you, Ellie. Truly. She left the mansion 20 minutes later, the envelope hidden in her bag, her head spinning. On the bus back, she looked out the dirty window, watching the city change around her. Tall buildings gave way to smaller houses. Smooth asphalt turned to uneven cobblestones. Bright lights became dim, flickering street lamps. Two worlds, and she was about to live between them, with a foot in each reality. The girl from the Bronx working in the Upper East Side mansion, the food delivery girl turned luxury nanny, the secret witness to crimes she couldn't yet fully name. When she got home, Helen was still awake, knitting a scarf she never finished. So? Ellie placed the money in her mother's hand and watched her eyes fill with tears. "I got the job, Mom, a real job." And as Helen cried with relief and gratitude, hugging her daughter tightly, Ellie looked out the window at the night sky and made a silent promise. To Sophie, the sister she couldn't save, to James, Thomas, and Oliver, whom she still had a chance to protect, and to herself, the girl who swore to never stay silent again. No matter what it cost, no matter what she discovered, she would see it through to the end. The war was just beginning. Ellie's first night at the Sterling mansion began with an awkward meeting in the main living room. Victoria was seated on a white leather sofa that looked like it cost more than a car, her legs crossed elegantly, a glass of red wine in her hand. She wore a tight black dress that highlighted her toned body and heels that Ellie recognized from a store window she passed every day. $10,000. Those shoes cost $10,000. "So you're the nanny?" Victoria looked her up and down, her gaze cold and calculating. She didn't smile. She didn't offer a hand to shake. She simply took a sip of wine and continued. "Arthur convinced me we need help at night. I disagree, but he insisted so. Much that I decided to give in. After all, marriage is about compromise, isn't it?" "Yes, Mum," Ellie replied, keeping her voice neutral. "I'm here to help with whatever is necessary. I'll make the rules clear from the start." Victoria placed the glass on the glass coffee table, each movement deliberate and controlled. "You take care of the babies from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Change diapers, prepare bottles, put them to sleep. Nothing more. You don't touch anything else in the house. You don't enter the other rooms. You don't talk to anyone about what happens here. You work. And you keep quiet. Understood?" "Understood. The bottles are already prepared in the fridge in their room. You just need to warm them up. The formula is special, imported, costs a fortune. Don't waste it. The diapers are in the closet. Use them sparingly. Each one costs almost $10. Ellie bit her tongue. $10 a diaper. And the woman was complaining about the expense while wearing $10,000 shoes. "If the babies cry too much, there's a vial on the nightstand. 3 drops in each of their bottles. It helps calm them down." "What kind of medicine is it?" "A natural sedative. Pediatrician approved." Victoria narrowed her eyes. "Why? Are you questioning my decisions?" "No, ma'am. I just wanted to know in case someone asks me." "No one is going to ask you anything. You're the nanny, not the mother. You do what I say, and that's it." Arthur appeared in the doorway at that moment, his tie loosened, an executive briefcase in his hand. He seemed to be just getting home from an appointment. "Victoria, darling, you don't have to be so harsh." He kissed the top of her head, but Ellie noticed the gesture was mechanical, without real affection. "Ellie is here to help us." "I know exactly why she's here," Victoria replied, and there was something in her tone that sent a shiver down Ellie's spine. The look she exchanged with Arthur lasted only a second, but it was charged with tension. "I'm just setting clear boundaries. An employee who knows her place works better." "She's not an employee. She's a specialized nanny," Arthur corrected, and Ellie realized he was walking on eggshells. "Anyway, Ellie, let me show you your room and then the boys' room." He led her through the house, and Ellie tried to memorize every detail. A huge living room, a formal dining room with a table for 12, a gourmet kitchen with appliances that looked like they were from a design magazine. First floor, the master suite, Arthur's office, a TV room. Second floor, the Triplets room and 3 more guest suites. And in the back, near the laundry room, a small, simple room with a single bed, a small wardrobe, and a tiny bathroom. "It's modest, but comfortable," Arthur said, looking almost embarrassed. "There are clean sheets in the wardrobe, towels too." "It's great. It's much better than my home," Ellie answered, honestly. Arthur hesitated at the door, looking back as if to check that Victoria wasn't around. "The medicine," she mentioned, "don't use it unless it's absolutely necessary, and if you do, let me know afterward." "I thought it was an approved natural sedative." He looked her in the eyes and Ellie saw the truth there. Guilt, fear, and anger directed at himself. Just be careful, okay? After he left, Ellie put her few clothes in the wardrobe and went to properly see the baby's room. It was large, well decorated, with wallpaper featuring clouds and airplanes. The 3 cribs were arranged, side by side, each with a colourful mobile hanging above it. James, Thomas and Oliver were sleeping soundly, small forms wrapped in blue blankets. Ellie approached slowly, observing each one. James had a birthmark on his left arm. Thomas was sucking his thumb even in his sleep, and Oliver had dark curls that were already starting to form. 5 months old. So small, so vulnerable, so dependent on the adults around them. She noticed the nightstand Victoria had mentioned. She opened the drawer. There was the unlabeled vial, a clear liquid inside. She picked it up and sniffed it. It had no odor. She put it back and took a picture with her phone. First piece of evidence. The night passed quietly until around 2 in the morning, when Thomas woke up crying. Ellie picked him up immediately, stroking him, whispering calm words. She checked his diaper. Clean. She prepared a bottle according to the instructions, warming it in the electric kettle in the room. While Thomas drank, watching her with his curious dark eyes, Ellie examined the formula can. Imported from Germany, as Victoria had said, but the expiration date was strangely covered by a new label. Why would someone cover the expiration date? She began to search discreetly. In the diaper closet she found stacks and stacks of packages, all as expensive as Victoria had claimed. But she also found boxes of regular American-made formula, much cheaper, hidden in the back. Why have 2 different formulas? In the trash can in the adjoining bathroom she found empty ampules, a strong liquid painkiller, much more than would be normal for 3 healthy babies. She photographed everything. At 5 in the morning, when the 3 babies were sleeping deeply after being changed and fed, Ellie heard footsteps in the hallway. Victoria appeared at the door, still in her dress from the night before. She smelled of alcohol. Did they give you trouble? They woke up to eat and be changed, but nothing major. They're calm babies. Calm? Victoria laughed, a humorless sound. You don't know them yet. They can be real demons when they want to be. She entered the room, stumbling slightly. She approached the cribs and looked at her sons with an expression Ellie couldn't decipher. It wasn't love. It wasn't even affection. It was something close to irritated tolerance. Just like their father. Victoria touched James's face. With her fingertip, a mechanical, loveless touch. Sometimes I look at them and I can't even believe they came from another woman. Clara. Perfect Clara. There was venom in that name. Ellie remained silent, instinctively knowing it was better to let her talk. Did you know she was a nurse? Victoria continued, leaning on Thomas's crib. Saint Clara, who dedicated her life to caring for others. Everyone loved her. The Sterling family adored her. And me? I'm the replacement. The one who came after. The one who will never be as good as the original. I'm sure that's not how. It is, Ellie said cautiously. You don't know anything. Victoria turned abruptly, almost losing her balance. See those pictures on the wall? In the hallway? All of her. Clara smiling, Clara pregnant, perfect Clara. And do you know how many pictures of me are in this house? None, not one. Ellie didn't know what to say. There was genuine pain in Victoria's voice, but there was also something else, something toxic and dangerous. But I'll show them all. Victoria straightened her shoulders, the mask of control returning. I'll prove that I'm better than her, smarter, stronger. She had it easy, grew up with money, opportunities. I came from nothing, clawed my way to where I am, and I'm not going to let 3 brats ruin everything. She left the room without looking back, leaving Ellie alone with a racing heart and a growing, terrible certainty. This woman didn't just not love the babies, she saw them as obstacles, as problems to be solved. Ellie took out her phone and typed everything Victoria had said, word for word, while it was still fresh in her memory. Then she emailed it to herself, creating a backup, second piece of evidence. When Arthur came down at 6:15 to check on the boys before going to work, Ellie was finishing tidying the room. He entered silently, went to each crib, and kissed his sleeping sons on the forehead. How was the night? Quiet. Ellie kept her voice low. They woke up for their bottles, but nothing out of the ordinary. And Victoria, did she interact with you? She stopped by in the middle of the night. We talked a little. Arthur looked at her expectantly, but Ellie shook her head subtly. Not here, not now. He understood and nodded. Get some rest before you go, and thank you, Ellie. Really. But Ellie couldn't rest. As soon as Arthur left for work, she explored more. In the kitchen, pretending to make coffee, she observed the cook, Mrs. Davis, a woman in her 60s who had worked there for decades. "You're the new nanny?" Mrs. Davis asked, stirring a pot of oatmeal. "Good thing they hired someone. These poor babies need attention." "What do you mean?" The woman stopped stirring and looked around, making sure they were alone. "I'm not one to talk about the boss's lives, but that woman, she's not like Mrs. Clara. Mrs. Clara would wake up in the middle of the night to breastfeed. She sang to them when they were still in her belly. She prepared the nursery with so much love. And this one? She barely looks at the children. Says she has migraines, that their crying bothers her. What kind of mother says that? She's their stepmother, Ellie reminded her. Even so, when you marry a widower with children, you take on the children too, don't you? Mrs. Davis lowered her voice even more. The other day I found her throwing away the organic baby food I'd prepared. Said it was too expensive, that basic formula was enough. Imagine with all the money they have. Ellie absorbed everything, making more mental notes. She was starting to piece together a puzzle, and each piece revealed a more disturbing picture. In the following days, the pattern repeated. Ellie worked from 8 to 6, caring for the triplets with all the affection she could offer. During the day, she slept a few hours at home, checked on her mother, then returned. Arthur barely appeared, always in meetings or on trips, and Victoria circulated through the house like an elegant, cold ghost, avoiding the children's room whenever possible. But on the 5th night, things changed. Ellie was changing Oliver's diaper when she heard raised voices from downstairs. Arthur and Victoria were arguing. She couldn't hear the words, but the tone was clear. Anger, accusation, defense. 15 minutes later, Victoria stormed up the stairs. She entered the baby's room with red eyes, her mascara smudged. She was furious. "He thinks I don't know," she said to herself, as if Ellie weren't there. "He thinks I'm stupid, but I know. I know he put you here to watch me." Ellie froze, Oliver still in her arms. "I don't know what you're talking about, Mom." "Don't play dumb with me," Victoria advanced, her finger pointing. "You're his eyes, aren't you? The little spy. You came here all sweet, all concerned about the babies, but you're actually recording everything, writing everything down to hand it over to him." "I'm just taking care of the children, as I was hired to do." Victoria laughed, a hysterical sound. "You think you'll get anything? You think they'll believe you, some girl from the slums over me? My family has a name, has power. I can destroy you with one phone call." She got so close that Ellie could smell the wine on her breath. "But you know what? I'll let you stay. You know why? Because it will be fun. Watching you try to find something against me and failing. Watching your hope die slowly as you realize there's nothing to find. I'm a perfect wife, a devoted mother. Ask anyone." Victoria left the room laughing, and Ellie heard her heels echoing on the marble staircase. She placed Oliver back in his crib with trembling hands and sent a message to Arthur. Just 3 words. "She knows everything." The reply came 5 minutes later. "Keep going, please, I trust you." Ellie looked at the 3 babies sleeping innocently, unaware of the silent war happening around them. A war she was beginning to realize would be much dirtier and more dangerous than she had imagined. And the worst was yet to come. The first incident happened on a Saturday morning as Ellie was finishing her shift. She went down to the kitchen at 6 a.m. to make coffee before leaving, as she did every day. Mrs. Davis hadn't arrived yet. The house was silent, just the sound of the grandfather. Clock ticking. Ellie was filling the kettle when she heard the crash, a loud bang from the living room. She ran to see what it was and found a Chinese porcelain vase shattered on the marble floor, shards scattered everywhere. It was a huge vase that stood on a pedestal near the window. It must have cost a fortune. "What did you do?" Victoria's voice cut through the air. She was at the top of the stairs, wearing a silk robe, her hair loose over her shoulders. She came down quickly, her expression horrified. "That vase belonged to Arthur's mother. It was an antique." "I didn't do anything," Ellie protested. "I was in the kitchen, I heard the noise and came to see." "And you expect me to believe that?" Victoria knelt, picking up the shards with exaggerated care, as if they were sacred relics. "You were the only one who passed through here." "But I didn't touch it. I didn't even get close." Arthur came running, still in his pajamas, obviously woken by the noise. "What happened?" "She broke your mother's vase," Victoria said, her voice choked as if she were on the verge of tears. "The one she loved so much. How could you hire someone so careless?" Arthur looked at Ellie, and she saw confusion in his eyes. He wanted to believe her, but the evidence was there for all to see. "Ellie?" "I swear, Mr. Sterling, I didn't break it. I was in the kitchen when I heard the crash." "Of course you'd say that," Victoria intervened. "What else would you say? That you dropped it on purpose?" "No one is saying it was on purpose." Arthur tried to calm the situation. "It was an accident. Ellie, be more careful next time." "But I didn't—" "Arthur," Victoria interrupted him, placing a hand on his arm. "I need to speak with you in private." They went into the office, closing the door. Ellie stood there, looking at the shards on the floor, her heart racing. It didn't make sense. The vase was on a high pedestal. There was no way it could have fallen on its own unless someone had deliberately pushed it. She bent down and examined the shards more closely. She noticed something strange. The base of the vase had marks, as if it had been hit by something hard. And there, near the pedestal, was a small scratch on the marble floor that wasn't there before, as if someone had dragged something heavy. She took quick photos with her phone before starting to collect the shards. When Arthur and Victoria returned, she had almost everything cleaned up. "We'll deduct it from your salary," Victoria announced, her arms crossed. "The vase was worth $50,000. We can do installments if you like." $50,000. The amount was absurd, impossible. "Victoria, that's excessive," Arthur protested. "It was an accident. An accident that cost our family an irreplaceable peace." Victoria looked at Ellie with a cold smile. "Unless you'd prefer to be fired." "No," Ellie answered quickly. "You can deduct it." Arthur looked uncomfortable, but didn't contradict his wife. After Victoria went upstairs again, he approached Ellie. "You really didn't break it, did you?" "I swear on my mother's life." He nodded slowly, but Ellie could tell he wasn't sure, and that hurt more than Victoria's accusation. She was there to help him, risking everything, and he didn't fully trust her. 3 days later, it happened again. Ellie was feeding James his bottle when she realized her phone wasn't in her pocket. She was sure. It had been there. She always kept it in the same place. She searched the entire room, turning everything upside down. Nothing. She only found the device hours later, inside the small fridge where the bottles were kept, completely dead and damaged by the moisture. All the photos she had taken as evidence were lost. Thankfully, she had backed them up to the cloud, but she had to spend half a month's salary to buy a new phone. The following week, it was the Persian rug in the dining room that appeared with a huge red wine stain. No one had seen how it happened, but Victoria immediately accused Ellie, saying she must have tripped and spilled a bottle. The fact that Ellie didn't drink and had never touched the bottles in the wine cellar didn't matter. Another $15,000 deducted from her salary. Then it was the large refrigerator in the kitchen. Someone had left it open overnight, ruining all the food Mrs. Davis had prepared for the week. Expensive, organic, imported food. Another $5,000 in damages. Ellie swore she had checked all the doors before going upstairs, but there was no way to prove it. The worst was when things started to disappear. First, it was a gold ring that Arthur kept in his office drawer, then a diamond bracelet of Victoria's, and then cash. $500 that was in the kitchen petty cash jar to pay the gardener. "She's stealing," Victoria told Arthur, loud enough for Ellie to hear from the hallway. "It's obvious. Look at the pattern. Broken things, spoiled food, now valuables disappearing. This girl is a con artist." "We have no proof," Arthur argued, but his voice was weak. "How much more proof do you need?" Victoria was hysterical now. She's robbing us, Arthur, and you're standing there defending her. Why? What is she to you? The insinuation was clear and offensive. Ellie felt her face burn with anger and humiliation. I'm not discussing this now. Arthur ended the conversation, but the damage was done. The other staff members began to look at Ellie with suspicion. Mrs. Davis, who had been friendly, now avoided talking to her. The family driver, George, locked the car whenever she walked past. The housekeeper counted her tip money in front of her, as if she thought Ellie would steal it. The pressure was becoming unbearable. Ellie thought about quitting several times. But whenever she was ready to give up, she would look at the triplets and remember why she was there. Those babies needed her, more than ever. Because while all this sabotage was happening, Ellie continued to document real evidence. She photographed the unlabeled vial several times whenever Victoria refilled it. She audio recorded a phone conversation where Victoria told a friend that the children were a burden and that Arthur was too weak to do what needed to be done. She noted every time Victoria entered the room how she treated the babies when she thought she was alone. And what she saw was increasingly disturbing. Victoria would pinch the babies when they cried too much, leaving red marks on their little arms. She would squeeze their cheeks hard when they had tantrums. She would scream horrible names at them when she lost her patience. Rabid monkeys, parasites, mistakes that cost someone better their life. One night, Ellie found Victoria holding Oliver in a strange way, her hands squeezing the baby's tummy too tightly. Oliver was crying desperately, his face purple. "What are you doing, ma'am?" "Trying to burp him," Victoria answered sharply, but she released the baby too quickly. "He won't stop crying, he must have colic." "Let me see." Ellie took Oliver and saw that he was fine, just scared. "I'll take care of him." "You always take care of things, don't you?" Victoria had that dangerous glint in her eyes again. The savior, the good one, making me look incompetent. "That's not it." "Shut up," Victoria exploded. "You know nothing about me, about my life. Do you think it's easy to walk into a family where everyone compares you to the perfect dead wife, where your husband still has pictures of her everywhere, where even the babies seem to prefer a stranger to you?" Ellie remained silent, rocking Oliver, who was starting to calm down. "I tried, you know," Victoria continued, and for the first time, Ellie saw something that could be genuine vulnerability. "I tried to love them. I tried to be the mother they need. But when I look at them, all I can see is her, Clara, the woman who had everything she ever wanted. Love, family, respect, all handed to her on a silver platter. While I clawed my way up, my whole life came from a tough part of town, studied at night, worked during the day, did it all myself. And still, even with her dead, I'm still in second place." There was real pain in those words, but there was also something toxic. The pain was turning into poison, into a desire for revenge against innocent babies who were not to blame for anything. "They're children," Ellie said softly. "They didn't choose to be born. They didn't ask to be left without a mother. They deserve love and care no matter how you feel. You don't understand." Victoria wiped her eyes, her mask falling back into place. "And you never will, because you're just like her, good, pure, a natural with babies as if you were born for it. While I was born to survive, and I will survive this too, whatever it takes." She left the room, leaving a heavy silence. Ellie held Oliver tighter, feeling his little heart beating against her chest. This woman was broken in some deep way, and broken people hurt other people, especially the most fragile ones. The next morning, Ellie found Arthur in the garden, apparently waiting for her. He was pale, with deep dark circles under his eyes. "I need to show you something." He took her to his office and turned on the computer. He opened a folder with videos. They were recordings from security cameras. Ellie saw herself appearing from various angles in the house. "You installed cameras?" "A long time ago, even before you arrived." He ran his fingers through his hair, nervous. "I have everything recorded, Ellie. I saw what happened with the vase. I saw Victoria push it. I saw her put your phone in the fridge. I saw her ruin the food and stain the carpet herself. So you..." "No, it wasn't me." "I know. And she knows that I know too. Ellie sat down heavily in the chair. Why don't you confront her? Why do you let this continue? Because I'm building a case, Arthur said, but his voice was too tired to be convincing. My lawyers said I need more. Evidence of neglect, of real danger to the babies. Accusations of sabotage against you aren't enough. So you're just going to let her destroy me to gather evidence? Arthur didn't answer, and the silence was answer enough. Ellie felt anger rise in her chest. You're a coward, she said to his face, not caring about the consequences. You have all the resources in the world, all the power, and you do nothing. You hide and watch your wife sabotage an employee, mistreat your children, and you don't lift a finger because you're afraid of losing money. It's not just money, Arthur defended himself. If I make a mistake, if she manages to convince a judge that I'm unstable, I could lose my sons completely. You're already losing them, just in a different way. You're losing the courage to be the father they need, she stormed out of the office, slamming the door, her hands shaking with anger and frustration. Ellie was trapped. She desperately needed the money. Her mother depended on the expensive medication. But every day in that house was eroding a piece of her, making her question if it was worth it. But when she went upstairs to say goodbye to the triplets, she found them awake in their cribs. Thomas saw her and gave her the biggest toothless grin she had ever seen. James held out his little arms, asking to be held. Oliver started giggling in that pure, genuine way only babies can. And Ellie knew she couldn't give up, no matter what it cost. Those babies deserved at least one person in the world who would fight for them until the end, even if that person was just a girl from the Bronx against a woman with all the power and money in the world. The situation exploded on a rainy Tuesday in March. Ellie arrived for her shift at 8 p.m. as usual, but something was different. There was a tension in the air, a silence that was too heavy. Mrs. Davis intercepted her in the kitchen with a worried face. Be careful today. The missus is in a terrible mood. Fought with Mr. Arthur all afternoon. About what? I don't know, but I heard her yelling about money, about not being valued. Said she was tired of being treated like an employee in her own home. Ellie went up to the baby's room with a heavy heart. She found all three awake but too quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't normal for healthy babies. Thomas was lying in his crib, staring at the ceiling. James was sucking his thumb with his eyes closed, even though he was clearly awake. And Oliver. Oliver was different. She approached quickly. The baby was hot, his face flushed, his breathing rapid. She picked him up and felt the fever through his clothes. Oh my God, you're burning up. She checked his temperature. 101.3. High but not alarming yet. She changed his clothes to something lighter, gave him a lukewarm bath, offered him water. Oliver was whimpering, clearly uncomfortable. That's when she saw the bottle. It was on the nightstand, still half full. Oliver must have drunk from it and not finished. Ellie picked up the container and sniffed. That smell. The same faint chemical smell she had noticed from the unlabeled vial. Her stomach churned. She poured the contents of the bottle into an empty baby food jar and put it in her pocket. Evidence. Then she prepared a new bottle with clean formula and filtered water. Oliver drank it all eagerly. Over the next 2 hours, Oliver's fever rose. 102. 103. Ellie applied cool compresses, gave him the correct dosage of fever reducer, did everything she knew. But the fever wouldn't break. The baby started to become lethargic, his eyes glassy. Victoria entered the room at 11, stumbling slightly. She had been drinking, obviously. She looked at Ellie holding Oliver and scowled. Why is he crying? He has a high fever. I think we need to call a doctor. A fever? Victoria approached, touching Oliver's forehead carelessly. It's just a cold. Babies get fevers all the time. But it's very high, almost 104, and he drank that bottle that was here. Ellie pointed to the nightstand. Something changed in Victoria's face. A flash of panic she quickly tried to conceal. What bottle? The one on the nightstand. It had a strange smell. I think something was mixed in it. Are you crazy? It was a normal bottle. Victoria snatched Oliver from Ellie's arms. You must have given him something wrong. Always meddling, always thinking you know better than everyone else. I didn't give him anything but formula and water. Liar! Victoria squeezed Oliver too tightly, and the baby started to cry louder. You're trying to sabotage me, to make it look like I don't take good care of them, but it won't work. Please, you're hurting him. Ellie tried to take Oliver back, but Victoria pushed her away violently. Don't touch me, get out of here, you're fired. I'm not leaving while he's like this, he needs a doctor. Arthur, Victoria screamed, her voice echoing through the house. Arthur, get in here now. Arthur came running, his eyes wide. What happened? She poisoned our son, Victoria accused, pointing at Ellie. Oliver is sick because of her. That's not true, Ellie protested. He already had a fever when I arrived, and there was a strange bottle here. I saved the rest, it's in my pocket. Arthur looked from one to the other, clearly torn. Let me see. Him. Victoria handed Oliver over, and Arthur saw the baby's condition. His face went pale. He's burning up. He needs a doctor. No, Victoria intervened quickly. We're not going to make a scene. I'll call Dr. Albright. He'll come here, he's discreet. Dr. Albright was the family's private physician, Ellie knew, a man Arthur had mentioned with suspicion before, a doctor Victoria had chosen personally. I think we should take him to the hospital, Ellie suggested. A real emergency room. No one asked for your opinion, Victoria hissed. Arthur, call Dr. Albright, now. Arthur hesitated, looking at Ellie. She tried to send a message with her eyes. Don't trust him, don't trust her. But Arthur was too cowardly to act. I'll call him. While Arthur went downstairs to make the call, Victoria approached Ellie, her voice low and full of venom. You think you're so smart, don't you? Saving evidence, writing everything down, but it won't do you any good, because now you've just poisoned a child. It'll be your word against mine, and who do you think they'll believe? I didn't do anything. Prove it. Victoria smiled, a cold smile. Dr. Albright will examine Oliver, he'll confirm he was poisoned, and he'll say you were responsible. Because you're the one who prepares the bottles, you're the one who has access to the children at night, and you're the one with a history of suspicious behavior in this house. Ellie felt the floor disappear from under her feet. It was a perfect trap. Victoria had planned everything. Dr. Albright arrived 40 minutes later, a man in his 50s, grey hair slicked back, wearing an expensive suit even at that hour. He examined Oliver quickly, took his temperature, checked his reflexes. It's a case of mild poisoning, he announced, putting away his stethoscope. Probably something in his food. I'll prescribe an IV and activated charcoal. He should be better in a few hours. Poisoning. Arthur was pale. But how? Dr. Albright looked at Ellie with what seemed like a rehearsed expression. Who prepares the baby's bottles? I do, Ellie answered, her voice trembling. But I didn't put anything wrong in it. The bottle he drank before I got here had a strange smell. I saved a sample. She took the small jar from her pocket. The doctor took it, sniffed it, and frowned. This has traces of a sedative, probably an overdose of a painkiller. He looked at Ellie sternly. Did you administer this? No, Ellie almost shouted. I found it like this. There's always this unlabeled vial on the nightstand, and Mrs. Sterling told me to use it, but I never did. I have pictures, I have notes, I have everything documented. How convenient, Victoria intervened, her voice calm and controlled. To have everything documented, almost as if you've been planning this for some time. I was documenting it because you mistreat these children. Ellie lost her composure. You pinch them, you scream at them, you call them horrible names. You shouldn't even be near them. Arthur, she's clearly disturbed. Victoria turned to her husband, tears in her eyes. She's making up absurd stories to distract from what she's done. I've always treated these children as my own. You know that. Arthur looked at Ellie and she saw it. She saw the doubt in his eyes. Even with all the evidence he had, even knowing the truth, he doubted. Because it was easier to doubt a poor girl from the Bronx than to confront his high society wife. Ellie, I think it's best if you leave, Arthur said, his voice low. We'll investigate all this calmly, but for now, you're firing me. I'm suspending you until we clear this up. There's nothing to clear up. Ellie felt tears of anger burn her eyes. You know the truth. You have the camera recordings, you have everything on record, and still you don't have the courage to do anything. Leave now or I'll call the police, Victoria said, triumphant. Ellie looked at Oliver in the doctor's arms, at James and Thomas in their cribs, watching everything with confused little eyes. 3 innocent babies trapped in a house with a dangerous woman and a father too cowardly to protect them. This isn't over, she said, grabbing her backpack. I will prove the truth, and when I do, you'll have to face what you've done. She left the mansion in a light rain, her heart shattered. She had no job, no access to the babies, and an accusation of poisoning hanging over her head. Victoria had won, or so she thought, because when Ellie reached the gate, she found someone waiting for her. Mrs. Davis, the cook, was standing there with an umbrella and a determined expression. I came to give you this. She held out a red flash drive. I thought a lot about whether I should get involved. I've spent my whole life serving this family without causing trouble, but I can't stay silent anymore. What is this? The truth. Mrs. Davis closed Ellie's fingers around the flash drive. I installed a hidden camera in the baby's room 2 weeks ago. I couldn't stand to see that woman mistreating the children and no one doing anything. It's all recorded. Everything. Ellie looked at the small device in her hand, feeling hope ignite in her chest. Why now? Why didn't you show this before? Because I was afraid of losing my job. I've worked here for 20 years. But tonight, seeing her accuse you like that, knowing she was the one who drugged the baby... Mrs. Davis wiped her eyes. I lost my son 15 years ago. Medical negligence, they said. But I know it was because we didn't have money for proper treatment in time. I promised I would never again stay silent watching a child suffer. And tonight I'm keeping that promise. Thank you, Ellie whispered, hugging the woman. Thank you so much. But you have to act fast, Mrs. Davis warned. Her? Victoria is planning something big. I heard her on the phone today, talking about institutionalizing the children, about papers for Arthur to sign. You have very little time. Ellie tucked the flash drive in the safest place she knew, deep in her bra, and ran out into the rain. She had a lot to do and very little time to do it, because if Victoria got what she wanted, those babies would be lost forever. And Eleanor Vance was not going to let that happen, not even if she had to face the whole world. Ellie spent the entire night watching the videos on the flash drive. Sitting on the floor of her apartment with her neighbor's borrowed laptop, she saw horrors she had never imagined. Victoria pinching the babies until they had bruises, Victoria screaming cruel words when they cried, Victoria putting drops from the unlabeled vial into their bottles, then falsifying records in the feeding log, Victoria on a video call with someone, laughing as she said she would soon be free of those parasites, that Arthur was too weak to stop her, that $300 million was worth any sacrifice. And even more shocking, recorded conversation between Victoria and Dr. Albright, where she paid the doctor to diagnose Arthur with nervous exhaustion, to suggest that the children would be better cared for in a specialized institution in Switzerland while their father recovered. An expensive boarding school where they would be far away, forgotten, while she enjoyed the fortune. Helen woke up at 5 in the morning to find her daughter still glued to the screen, her eyes red. My dear, what happened? Ellie told her everything. Her mother listened in silence, her hands trembling. You have to show this to someone, to the police, to a judge. It won't work, Ellie rubbed her tired face. Victoria has connections, money, lawyers. They'll say the recordings are illegal, that they were edited, that I made it all up. I need something more public, more undeniable. How? Ellie thought for a moment, a plan forming in her mind. The party. What party? Victoria is organizing a vow renewal, a huge event with the entire New York elite. I heard the staff talking about it. It's on Saturday, 2 days from now. She's going to use the party to cement her image of the perfect family, to show she's a devoted wife and a loving mother. And you're going to show up there. I am. And I'm going to show these videos to everyone, in front of all the guests. There will be no way for her to deny it. No way to hide. Helen held her daughter's hands. This is dangerous. That woman has tried to destroy you before. Imagine what she'll do if you humiliate her publicly. I know, Mum. But I have no choice. Those babies are out of time. If she gets Arthur to sign those institutionalization papers, they'll be lost. For the next 2 days, Ellie prepared. She made copies of the flash drive, sent the videos to different email accounts, left one drive with her neighbor, another with the priest at the local church. She bought a simple but presentable outfit at a thrift store, rehearsed what she would say. On Saturday morning, she woke up to a text from Mrs. Davis. Just 3 words. It's today. Hurry. She tried calling Arthur several times. They all went to voicemail. She sent texts. No reply. He was avoiding her, clearly instructed by Victoria. At 7 in the evening, Ellie took the bus to the Upper East Side wearing the black pants and white blouse she had managed to find. It looked like a waitress's uniform, but it was the best she could do. She carried the flash drive in her pocket, her heart beating so hard she thought everyone could hear it. The Sterling mansion was transformed. Decorative lights everywhere, valets parking imported cars, a red carpet from the sidewalk to the front door. Elegant guests arrived in groups, the women in designer dresses and jewelry that cost more than entire houses, the men in impeccable tuxedos. Ellie couldn't get in through the front. She went around to the service entrance, where staff were rushing back and forth with last-minute preparations. Mrs. Davis saw her and gave a discreet nod. "Did you get in unnoticed?" "I did. The party's already packed. More than 200 people." "Where are the babies?" "In their room with a temporary nanny Victoria hired, an older woman who has no idea about anything." "And Arthur?" "In there, receiving congratulations next to her. He looks like a ghost." Ellie took a deep breath. "Where's the big television?" "In the main living room where the ceremony will be." "But there's security at all the entrances." "Then I'll need a distraction." Mrs. Davis thought for a moment, then nodded. "Leave it to me. When you hear the sound of plates breaking in the kitchen, run to the living room. I'll get the security guards to come this way." Ellie waited, hidden behind a pillar in the hallway, watching the activity. The mansion was stunning. Flowers in every corner, champagne flowing freely, a string quartet playing classical music. And at the center of it all, Victoria, dazzling in a white lace dress that must have cost a fortune, her hair in an elegant updo, jewels sparkling at her neck and ears. The perfect bride, the perfect liar. Arthur was by her side, smiling mechanically at the guests. But Ellie saw the truth. She saw the extreme exhaustion, the sadness in his eyes. His shoulders slumped like someone carrying an unbearable weight. The noise came 10 minutes later, a huge crash from the kitchen, followed by screams. The 2 security guards watching the living room entrance ran to see what it was. Ellie took her chance and slipped inside, hiding behind a heavy curtain. The ceremony was beginning. A hired officiant stepped onto a small stage set up in front of the massive fireplace. Arthur and Victoria stood facing each other, holding hands. The guests settled into chairs arranged in rows. "We are gathered here today," the officiant began in a pompous voice, "to witness the renewal of the vows of love between Arthur Sterling and Victoria Beaumont Sterling, a couple who represents not only a matrimonial union, but also the union of 2 of New York's most venerable families." Ellie looked for the television. There. A huge screen mounted on the wall, probably to show photos of the couple later. Perfect. "Arthur, would you like to share your words?" Arthur cleared his throat, pulling a piece of paper from his pocket. His voice came out weak. "Victoria, when we met, I was lost. You brought light into my life and love to my children. I am grateful for—" He stopped. He looked at Victoria, and something flickered in his eyes. Pain, anger, disappointment. "I can't do this." The room fell silent. Victoria squeezed his hand hard, her smile tightening. "Arthur, darling, you're nervous. Continue." "No." Arthur pulled his hand away. "I can't renew vows based on lies." A murmur went through the guests. Victoria turned pale. "You're having an episode," she whispered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Dr. Albright warned about this. The stress, the pressure." "I'm not having an episode." Arthur stepped away. "I'm just finally finding the courage to face the truth. You don't love my children, you never did. You married me for the money." "That's ridiculous." Victoria looked at the guests, trying to do damage control. He's not well. He lost his wife less than a year ago. He has 3 babies. The pressure... Ellie saw her chance. She stepped out from behind the curtain, walking toward the television. A few people noticed her, frowning in confusion. Who was this plainly dressed young woman in the midst of all this elegance? You! Victoria saw her, and her face contorted with rage. How dare you show your face here? Security! Get this intruder out of here! But Ellie was already plugging the flash drive into the TV's USB port. The security guards were running toward her, but they didn't get there in time. The screen lit up, showing a file menu. Everyone should see this, Ellie said, her voice loud enough to echo. You should see who Victoria Beaumont Sterling really is. She clicked on the first video. The image filled the giant screen. Victoria in the baby's room, pinching James's arm until he cried desperately, then covering the baby's mouth to make him quiet, calling him a monster, a mistake, a thing that should have died with his mother. Gasps of horror rippled through the room. People stood up, staring at the screen with shocked expressions. Ellie clicked on the next video. Victoria putting drops from the unlabeled vial into a bottle, laughing as she said that soon the babies would be so doped up they wouldn't even cry anymore. This is doctored, Victoria screamed. This girl is disturbed. She was fired for poisoning my son. She made all this up. But the next video left no room for doubt. It was the video call. Victoria, sitting on the couple's bed, talking to someone through her laptop. Her voice was clear with no possible manipulation. Just a few more weeks and he'll sign the papers. Arthur is almost convinced it would be better for everyone. The children will go to that boarding school in Switzerland out of sight. He can focus on grieving for his sainted Clara, and I can finally enjoy what is mine by right. 300 million, darling. It's worth every second of this charade. The person on the other end of the call was Dr. Albright. He was laughing, saying the diagnosis of exhaustion was ready, that he would convince Arthur easily. The silence in the room was now absolute. Everyone looked from Victoria to the screen, to Arthur, processing what they were seeing. The perfect mask had fallen. The truth was exposed undeniably before 200 witnesses from New York's elite. Arthur approached the screen, watching the videos with tears streaming down his face. When he finally turned to Victoria, there was something new in his eyes. No more doubt, no more weakness. Rage. You, his voice trembled, you planned all of this, from the very beginning. Victoria tried to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. She looked around, seeing all those people, some she had known for years, looking at her with revulsion and horror. It's a lie, she finally managed to say. This girl is obsessed with me. She edited the videos. But no one believed her. The evidence was too clear, too detailed, and more people began to speak up. An older woman, a friend of Arthur's mother. I always thought you were cold with the children. I never wanted to believe it, but now I see my instincts were right. Others agreed. Comments they had held back out of politeness now came to the surface. The way Victoria avoided holding the babies, how she spoke of them as burdens, how she showed no real maternal affection. Victoria looked at Arthur, extending a hand in supplication. Arthur, please. We can talk about this in private. Not like this, not in front of everyone. There's nothing to talk about. Arthur took a step back as she tried to touch him. I want you out of my house now. You can't kick me out. Half of everything is mine by law. That may be, but you will not have access to my sons, ever again. Arthur looked at the guests. I ask that you all leave, please. This party is over. People began to disperse, murmuring among themselves, looking back. It would be the scandal of the decade in high society circles. Victoria Beaumont Sterling, the woman everyone admired, exposed as a cruel fraud. Victoria turned to Ellie, her eyes burning with pure hatred. You've destroyed my life. No. Ellie didn't back down. You destroyed your own life. I just showed the truth. I'll sue you until you have nothing left. Shut up, Victoria, Arthur interrupted. The only person getting sued here is you. For fraud, for child abuse, for attempted embezzlement, and I will make sure everyone knows who you really are. Security guards escorted Victoria out as she screamed threats and insults. Her voice echoed through the mansion until it was cut off by the sound of the door closing. When they were finally alone, just Arthur, Ellie, and the few staff members who remained, Arthur turned to her. "You risked everything. Why?" "Because someone had to." Ellie looked up the stairs that led to the baby's room. "And because those babies deserve someone to fight for them." Arthur nodded slowly, wiping his eyes. "I was a coward. This whole time. I had all the evidence and did nothing. But you can do something now. You can be the father they need." He looked at his empty hands, at the room still decorated for a party that would never happen, at the uncertain future that awaited him. "I'm going. To need help. I don't know how to take care of them alone. I don't know how to fix everything I let break." Ellie thought of her mother, the medicine, the apartment that leaked when it rained. She thought of everything she had to lose. And then she thought of the 3 babies upstairs, finally safe, finally with a chance to grow up in a real home. "Then you'd better start learning." And in that moment, among the wreckage of a ruined party and the fragments of shattered lives, something new began to form. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was real. And real was all those babies ever needed. The next morning dawned gray over New York City. Ellie woke up in the small room at the back of the mansion, where Arthur had insisted she stay, at least temporarily. The events of the previous night felt like a fever dream. The ruined party, the exposed videos, Victoria being escorted out screaming threats. But it was all real, terribly, wonderfully real. She found Arthur in the kitchen at 6 a.m., still wearing the tuxedo pants from the night before. His shirt wrinkled, his eyes red from a sleepless night. He was holding a baby bottle in one hand and his phone in the other, clearly trying to figure out how to warm the milk. "Let me help." Ellie took the bottle and showed him how to do it correctly. "Use the electric kettle, never the microwave. Always test it on your wrist before giving it to them. And when you feed them, keep the baby inclined, never lying flat." Arthur watched every move as if memorizing instructions for heart surgery. "How do you know all this?" "I took care of my little sister when I was a child, and then I did a lot of research learned from my mother, from neighbors who had kids." Ellie prepared 3 bottles, lining them up on the counter. Each one has his preferences. James likes it lukewarm, Thomas prefers it warmer, and Oliver will take it at any temperature as long as you stroke his head while he drinks. Arthur jotted it all down on his phone, his fingers trembling. "I'm a terrible father." "You're not," Ellie faced him. "A terrible father wouldn't have done what you did yesterday. It was hard, but you faced it finally. I should have faced it much sooner." He sat down at the kitchen table, running his hands over his face. "Months ago, as soon as I realized something was wrong, but I was scared of losing everything, of looking crazy, of being wrong. But you weren't wrong." "No. And because of my cowardice, my sons suffered. You suffered." He looked at her with eyes full of guilt. "You almost lost everything because of me. You were accused of poisoning, sabotaged, humiliated, and I just stood by and watched. But you acted in the end, and now you can start over. Be the father they need. I don't know if I can do this alone." "Then don't do it alone." Ellie poured coffee for them both. "I'm here. Mrs. Davis is here, and you can hire good people, people who really care." Arthur drank his coffee in silence for a moment. "My lawyers will be here soon. They'll need the flash drive, all the evidence. There will be a criminal case against Victoria and Dr. Albright. Fraud, child abuse, attempted embezzlement. I'm also filing for an immediate divorce and a restraining order. And she'll fight it. She definitely will. She has money, expensive lawyers. She'll try to turn the situation around, make it seem like the videos were manipulated, that she's the victim of a conspiracy." Arthur looked out the window at the garden where the sun was beginning to rise. But after what happened yesterday, with 200 witnesses seeing everything, it's going to be hard for her. The babies woke up at 7, and for the first time, Arthur took care of them completely. Ellie stood by, guiding him, but letting him do the work. She saw the frustration when James spit out the bottle, the panic when Thomas cried too, loudly, the tenderness when Oliver finally calmed down in his arms. "This is harder than it looks," Arthur admitted. after an exhausting hour of changing diapers, cleaning up spit-up, and trying to get 3 babies to sleep at the same time. It is, but it's also more rewarding. Ellie smiled, watching James yawn in his crib, his little eyes fighting sleep. Look at that. You did it. In the middle of the morning, the house began to fill with people. Lawyers with leather briefcases, a private investigator Arthur hired to gather more evidence, a child psychologist to evaluate the triplets and ensure they were okay, and reporters. Lots of reporters outside the gate, cameras and microphones at the ready. The scandal was all over social media. Videos from the party had leaked, probably filmed by a guest. The images of Victoria being exposed had gone viral. Hashtags about her were trending on Twitter. The tabloids had screaming headlines. The New York elite were buzzing in private groups. It was impossible to escape. Arthur's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Relatives, friends, acquaintances, all wanting details. He turned off his phone after the 20th call. I can't take it anymore. Everyone wants gossip. Wants the dirty details. No one is actually calling to see if my sons are okay. Welcome to the world you chose to live in, Ellie commented, then regretted her harshness. Sorry, that wasn't fair. No, you're right. Arthur sat on the living room sofa, his head in his hands. I've always lived in this bubble. Parties, events, appearances. I never stopped to think about what really mattered. Clara tried to show me, but I was too busy building an empire, closing deals, adding zeros to my bank account. Clara was your first wife? She was. Arthur stood up and walked to a bookshelf where framed photos were displayed. He picked one up and showed it to Ellie. A beautiful woman, a genuine smile, pregnant and holding her belly. She was a nurse. I met her when I went to the hospital to visit an employee who'd had an accident. We started talking and she was different from all the women I knew. Real, no games, no interest in money. She just wanted to be happy and make others happy. I'm so sorry for what happened. Complications during childbirth. The doctors did everything they could, but she lost too much. Blood. In her last hours, she made me promise I would take good care of the boys, that I wouldn't let money and work push me away from them, and I failed. In less than 6 months, I had already broken my promise. Tears streamed down his face. Ellie approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. But you can keep it now, there's still time. I hope so. In the afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. Victoria's mother, Mrs. Beaumont, arrived in a black Mercedes, dressed all in black as if in mourning. She was a woman in her 60s, elegant, with the air of someone who had always had money and power. Arthur received her in the living room. Ellie stayed close by in case he needed support. I've come to collect my daughter's things, Mrs. Beaumont announced, her voice cold, and to discuss this regrettable situation. Regrettable situation? Arthur repeated, incredulous. Your daughter drugged my babies, planned to have them permanently institutionalized, and committed marriage fraud for money. And you call it a regrettable situation? Those videos are manipulated. Victoria told me everything. That girl there, she pointed at Ellie without looking at her directly, is disturbed. She was obsessed with my daughter. She made it all up to get revenge for being fired. 200 people saw those videos yesterday, ma'am, you know that. Witnesses of all kinds. You can't say it was all manipulated. My family has the resources to prove the truth. Mrs. Beaumont straightened her shoulders. And we will not let our reputation be destroyed by some girl from the slums and a man who can't even take care of his own children. Ellie felt her anger boil, but before she could respond, Arthur stepped forward. Get out of my house now. You will regret this, Arthur Sterling. Mrs. Beaumont walked to the door, her heels echoing on the marble. My family does not forget, and we do not forgive. After she left, Arthur turned to Ellie. They're really going to fight, with everything they have. I know, but the truth is on our side. Sometimes the truth isn't enough when you're up against power and money. Then we'll have to be stronger. That evening, after the babies were finally asleep, Arthur called Ellie into his office. Papers were spread across the desk, contracts and legal documents. I want to offer you something. He pushed a folder toward her. An official position, not as a nanny but as the primary caregiver for my sons. A proper salary, a formal contract, full benefits, plus a residence on the property for you and your mother. I'll build a small house in the back, nothing luxurious but comfortable. Ellie opened the folder, seeing the numbers. It was more money than she had ever dreamed of earning. Why? Why are you doing all this? Because my sons need you. Because you proved you truly care when no one else did. And because... He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Because I need someone I can trust. Someone who isn't here for the money or the position. Someone real. Ellie looked at the papers, then at Arthur. She saw a broken man trying to rebuild himself. A father trying to learn to be what he should have been from the start. And she saw 3 babies who deserved to grow up knowing they were loved. I accept, but with conditions. What are they? No more hiding. If something is wrong, you speak up. If you have doubts, you ask. No more secrets, no more cowardice. Arthur extended his hand. Deal. They shook hands, sealing an agreement that was much more than professional. It was a promise. To rebuild what was broken, to protect those who needed protection, to finally put what really mattered first. Outside, a storm was brewing, not just of rain, but of the consequences yet to come. Victoria would not give up easily, neither would her family. The legal battle would be long and brutal. The headlines would continue for weeks. The high society gossip would persist for months. But inside that mansion, something new was growing, fragile like a seedling pushing through concrete, but growing. A family being, reassembled from the pieces, not perfect, not traditional, but real. And sometimes real was the only thing that mattered. 3 weeks had passed since the night of the scandal, 3 weeks that completely transformed the routine of the Sterling mansion. The heavy curtains were replaced with lighter ones that let the sun in. The formal portraits on the walls gave way to candid photographs of the triplets. The sepulchral silence was broken by baby laughter and children's music playing on the speakers. Helen Miller moved into the small house Arthur had built in the backyard. It was small, just 2. Bedrooms, a living room and a kitchen, but it had heating, constant hot water, and was just a few steps from the main house. For the first time in years, the woman didn't have to worry about leaks or cold. "My dear, this all feels like a dream," she would say every day, still not believing the change. From a cramped apartment in the Bronx to a house with a garden, who would have thought? Ellie divided her time between caring for the triplets and teaching Arthur how to be a father. And she discovered he was a dedicated, if sometimes frustrated, student. He would wake up in the middle of the night when the babies cried, even after an exhausting day of meetings. He learned to change diapers without complaining about the smell. He sang lullabies in an off-key voice that made the babies laugh instead of sleep. "I'm doing it wrong again, aren't I?" Arthur asked one morning, after James had spit out mashed papaya for the 5th time. "You're not doing it wrong. He just doesn't like papaya." Ellie wiped the baby's face. "Try mashed banana, it's sweeter. But the nutritionist said papaya has more vitamins." "And what good are vitamins if he won't eat it?" Ellie smiled. "Babies don't read nutrition manuals, Arthur. They each have their preferences." He noted it on his phone. "Banana for James, papaya for Thomas. Oliver eats anything." "Exactly. You're learning." The house also gained new staff. Arthur fired everyone Victoria had hired and brought in new people. Besides Mrs. Davis and George, who remained, he hired a trusted pediatric nurse, an early childhood educator for when the boys were a bit older, and 2 general helpers who lived in Ellie's neighborhood. "I want to hire people who really need it," Arthur explained, "and people you know, people you trust." That's how Jessica and Amanda, 2 of Ellie's childhood friends, got steady jobs with full benefits for the first time in their lives, and how Mrs. Davis could finally hire a kitchen assistant, easing her tired back. Mornings became an organized but chaotic routine. Arthur would wake up at 6, help bathe the babies while Ellie prepared their bottles. After their breakfast, it was the adults' turn, with Mrs. Davis making fresh bread and cake that filled the house with a wonderful smell. "This is the life," George would comment, having coffee with everyone in the kitchen. "This house used to be as quiet as a cemetery. Now it has life, it has joy." "And a mess," Arthur added, wiping oatmeal that Oliver had thrown on his dress shirt. A lot of mess. But he was smiling. A genuine smile that Ellie hadn't seen since she first met him. Afternoons were dedicated to work. Arthur had virtual meetings in his office, managing the company from home, so he could be close to his sons. Ellie took care of the babies, played with them on the activity mat that had transformed the living room, and took them for walks in the triple stroller around the garden. It was during one of these walks that she met the neighbors. An elderly woman who lived in the mansion next door came to the wall. "Are these Mr. Sterling's sons? They're beautiful." The woman smiled. "I heard about what happened, that Victoria always seemed false to me. Good thing he got rid of her. News travels fast around here. Around here and all over New York, my dear." The woman leaned in as if sharing a secret. "But most people are on your side, especially after those videos leaked. We were all horrified." The videos had indeed leaked online. Not all of them, but enough to cause national outrage. Victoria and Dr. Albright became symbols of everything wrong with the elite. People online demanded punishment, shared similar stories, and debated child protection. The criminal case was moving slowly, as all cases do, but Arthur's lawyers were good and confident. The evidence was too solid. Victoria tried to claim the videos were manipulated, but forensic analysis proved they were authentic. She tried to say she was suffering from postpartum depression, but she wasn't the children's biological mother. She tried to argue she was the victim of an arranged marriage, but her own video calls condemned her. "She'll get 3 to 6 years, the lead lawyer explained in a meeting. "Child abuse, marriage fraud, attempted embezzlement, plus the racketeering charges with the doctor. It's an open and shut case." "And the divorce?" "That's also moving forward. With the evidence of marriage fraud, she won't get half the assets. Maybe 10, 20 million, so she doesn't appeal forever. But the main fortune is protected." Arthur didn't seem relieved. If anything, he looked tired. "I don't care about the money. I just want her to stay away from my sons forever. The restraining order is already in effect. She can't come within 500 yards of the house or the children." But at night, when the house was quiet and only the soft sounds of the sleeping babies filled the air, Arthur would show his insecurities to Ellie. "What if I'm not enough?" They were on the back porch, drinking tea after putting the triplets to bed. "What if I mess everything up again?" "You won't." "How can you be so sure?" "Because now you truly care. You're not doing this because you have to or because someone told you to. You're doing it because you love them." Arthur was silent, looking at the stars. "Ellie, can I ask you something personal?" "You can." "Why did you do all this? You risked your job, your reputation, your safety, for 3 babies you didn't even know." Ellie thought of Sophie, the little sister she had lost. She thought of all the times she had seen injustice and couldn't do anything. She thought of the promise she had made to herself. "When my sister got very sick, we waited for hours to be seen. She was burning with fever in my arms, and I saw the doctors walking by, the nurses busy, everyone in too much of a hurry to help. I felt so helpless, so angry. I swore that if I ever had the chance to help someone, especially a child, I wouldn't hesitate, no matter the cost. I'm sorry about your sister." "Me too. But it wasn't in vain, you know. She taught me to fight. She taught me that silence is complicity." Ellie wiped her eyes. "When I heard those babies crying that first night, it was as if Sophie was telling me to act, to not let other children suffer like she did." Arthur moved closer and hesitantly took her hand. "Thank you for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. Just be the father they deserve. That's repayment enough." They stayed there, hands intertwined, looking at the moonlit garden. Something was changing between them, something neither of them was ready to name yet, but which was growing silently, like the flowers in the garden. The following weekend, Arthur had an idea. "Let's have a picnic, all of us. You, your mother, the babies, the staff. A celebration." A celebration of what? Of new beginnings, of second chances, of finally doing things right. The picnic took place on a sunny Saturday. They spread blankets in the garden. Mrs. Davis prepared real, hearty food. Helen made her famous cornbread, and George played the guitar. The triplets crawled on the grass, laughing when the wind rustled the trees. Ellie watched it all with a full heart. These people, so different in their backgrounds and stories, united by something simple yet powerful: genuine care, true love, a shared purpose. Arthur sat beside her, James asleep in his lap. "You know what I've realized," he said, watching Thomas and Oliver play with colorful blocks. "In the last few months I've learned more about life than in all the previous years. I've learned that money can't buy the things that really matter. I've learned that strength doesn't come from power, but from doing what's right even when it's hard. And I've learned that family isn't about blood or contracts, but about who shows up when you need them." He looked at Ellie, his eyes shining. "And you showed up when no one else did, when I wasn't even showing up for my own sons. You showed up and changed everything." Ellie felt tears in her eyes. "We do that for each other, don't we? We show up. We do. And I'm going to make sure I always show up from now on. For them." He looked at the babies. "And for you." The sun was setting as they began to pack up. The sky was painted orange and pink. The babies were tired but happy, and everyone had that good kind of exhaustion that comes from a day well lived. Helen took her daughter's hand. "You did the right thing, my girl. Your grandmother would be proud. Your sister would be proud." "I hope so, Mom." That night, putting the triplets to bed, Ellie sang the lullaby she used to sing to Sophie, a simple melody about stars and dreams and better tomorrows, and for the first time in years she managed to sing it without crying, because she finally understood. Sometimes we lose battles, sometimes we arrive too late, but sometimes, if we're lucky and brave, we arrive just in time, and those times make all the others worthwhile. James, Thomas, and Oliver slept deeply, their breaths soft and synchronized. 3 lives saved, 3 futures protected, 3 reasons to believe that the world, despite everything, could still be good. And as she turned off the light in the room and gently closed the door, Ellie smiled, because she knew deep in her heart that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was born to do. 6 months later, life at the Sterling mansion had found its own rhythm. The triplets had just turned 1 and were starting to take their first steps. James was the most adventurous, trying to climb everything in sight. Thomas was the observer, sitting and studying his toys before deciding how to play. And Oliver was the clown, always making funny faces and sounds to make the adults laugh. The transformation in the house was visible. What was once a mausoleum of cold marble had become a true home. Toys were scattered across the living room, finger paintings were stuck to the fridge, and music played in every room. Arthur had even converted one of the guest suites into a playroom with colorful mats, shelves full of children's books, and a small slide that made the boys giggle. The case against Victoria had finally come to an end. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison for child abuse, fraud, and racketeering. Dr. Albright received 6 years for the same crimes, plus the loss of his medical license. The Beaumont family tried to appeal, hiring the best lawyers, but the evidence was irrefutable. The videos, the testimonies, the medical exams on the babies that showed levels of sedatives in their blood. On the day of the sentencing, Arthur and Ellie were in court. Victoria looked at them with pure hatred as she was led away by the officers, but she said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The mask had fallen and there was no way to put it back on. "It's over," Arthur said as they left the courthouse, taking a deep breath. "It's finally over." "Not completely," Ellie reminded him. "She'll appeal. She'll try to reduce her sentence. Let her try. She can't change what she did. And my sons are safe. That's all that matters." The divorce had also been finalized. Victoria received $15 million, less than she expected, but enough to prevent endless appeals. Arthur was granted full custody of the triplets, and she was forbidden from any contact with them until they turned 18. Arthur's social life changed completely as well. He declined invitations to elite parties, preferring to stay home with the boys. He sold off less important stocks and investments to focus more on his family and less on work. He started attending a support group for single fathers, where he learned he wasn't alone in the struggles and joys of raising children. It was at one of these meetings that he met Robert, a widowed businessman with 2-year-old twin girls. "I completely get it," Robert said when Arthur shared his story. "I lost my wife in a car accident. Suddenly I was alone with 2 babies and no idea what to do. The first few months were hell." "How did you survive?" "By accepting help. That's the secret. Pride is useless when you have small children." Robert took a sip of coffee. "And by finding good people. It sounds like you got lucky with this Ellie." "I got more than lucky. She saved my sons, and she saved me too, in a way." Robert smiled knowingly. "Be careful. It starts like that, and before you know it, you're in love." "It's not like that." Arthur defended himself too quickly. "She's an employee. We have a professional relationship." "Of course. That's why you smile that way when you talk about her." Arthur fell silent, processing. It was true that he thought about Ellie constantly. The way she laughed when the babies did something funny, the way she sang them to sleep, how soft and careful her hands were when changing a diaper, how her eyes lit up when she talked about the boy's future. But it was just gratitude, wasn't it? Admiration for everything she had done, had sacrificed. It wasn't. It couldn't be more than that. Or could it? Meanwhile, Ellie was fighting her own battles. Her life had improved immensely, that was undeniable. A good salary, a comfortable home for her mother, a job she loved. But there were moments when she felt displaced. She no longer fully belonged in the Bronx, but she wasn't part of the Upper East Side elite either. "You've changed," her friend Jessica commented one day, as they were cleaning the living room. "It's not a bad thing, but you've changed. You talk differently, you act differently." "It's the environment," Ellie said, folding a blanket. Oliver had used. "You adapt. Or you're falling in love with the boss and you don't even realize it." "What? No!" Ellie felt her face flush. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" Jessica smiled slyly. "Because I see the way you look at him, and the way he looks at you. Everyone in the house sees it. We're colleagues. We work together taking care of the children. Keep telling yourself that. But when you accept the truth, let me know. I want to be the maid of honor at the wedding." Ellie tried to laugh, but Jessica's words hammered in her head. It was true that Arthur had become more than a boss. He was a friend, a confidant, a partner in the mission of raising 3 healthy and happy boys. But love? That was too complicated. They came from different worlds. He had $300 million. She came from the slums. He was high society. She was... "You're overthinking again," Helen said that night when Ellie visited her in the small house. "I can see the smoke coming out of your ears." "Mum, do you think it's possible for 2 people from completely different worlds to be together?" "It depends. If they truly love each other and are willing to work on their differences, yes. If one thinks they're better than the other, no." "And what if the whole world says they shouldn't be together?" Helen took her daughter's hand. "My dear, society is just a bunch of people with opinions, but who's going to sleep in each other's arms every night? Who's going to wake up together in the morning? Who's going to raise the children together? It's not society, it's the 2 people, so the only opinion that matters is theirs." "Do you think Arthur and... I think you're already a family, you just haven't admitted it yet." Helen smiled. "Those babies adore you both. You work well together. You respect each other. You trust each other. The rest is just a formality. It's not that simple. It never is. But sometimes we make things more complicated than they need to be." A week later, something happened that changed everything. Arthur had to travel to Chicago for an urgent meeting. It was supposed to be just for the day, a round trip. But the flight was delayed, then cancelled, and he ended up having to spend the night there. It was the first night Ellie was solely responsible for the triplets without Arthur around. Technically, she wasn't alone. She had the whole team of staff. But it was different. The responsibility felt heavier. The boys sensed their father's absence. Oliver cried for an hour, inconsolable. James refused dinner. Thomas was fussy all day. And at night, when she finally managed to get them to sleep, Ellie was exhausted. She sat in the hallway between the baby's room and her own, leaning against the wall, and let the tears fall. Tears of exhaustion, of pressure, of doubt. What if she wasn't good enough? What if she was doing everything wrong? What if the boys needed more than she could offer? The phone rang. It was Arthur. "Hi, did you make it back?" "No, I have to stay until tomorrow. How are the boys?" She thought about lying, saying everything was fine, but she remembered their promise, no secrets. "It was a tough night. They missed you. And I missed you too." Silence on the other end. Then Arthur's voice, softer. "I missed you all too. The whole lot of you, this house, this crazy life we've built." He paused. "Ellie, can I confess something?" "You can." "When I was in that meeting today, surrounded by businessmen talking about profits and stocks and expansion, all I could think about was coming home, seeing the boys take their first steps, having coffee with you in the kitchen while we planned the day, all the little things that turned that empty mansion into a home." Ellie felt her heart speed up. "Arthur, I know it's complicated. I know I'm your boss, that we come from different worlds, but I can't pretend anymore that you're just the nanny to my children. You're so much more. You're part of our family. You're important to me, very important." "You're important to me too," she admitted, her voice trembling. "More than you should be. More than is professional or appropriate." What if we stopped worrying about what's appropriate? What if we just tried, see where this goes? And what if it goes wrong? What if it ruins everything we've built? And what if it goes right? What if it's exactly what we all need? Ellie closed her eyes, the phone pressed against her ear. She thought of Sophie, who never had. The chance to grow up and love and live. She thought of all the things she hadn't done out of fear, because she thought she didn't deserve them, because she believed she was too small to dream big. "When are you coming back?" "Tomorrow morning, first flight out." "Then we'll talk when you get here, in person, the right way." She could hear the smile in his voice. "I can't wait." That night, Ellie couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, imagining possibilities, a future she hadn't dared to dream of, a family she hadn't planned, a love that had grown silently between bottles and diapers and sleepless nights. Early in the morning, she heard Arthur's car pull up. She ran downstairs, meeting him at the door. He dropped his suitcase, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. The weight of months of unspoken feelings, of shared glances, of hands that touched accidentally. "Ellie," he began. She didn't let him finish. She took a step forward and kissed him. A soft, hesitant kiss, but full of promise, of new beginnings and second chances and tomorrows that could be built together. When they parted, they were both smiling. "Good morning," she said. "The best morning," he replied, and from the top of the stairs Mrs. Davis watched with a knowing smile, shaking her head. Finally, she thought. Finally, those two figured out the obvious. Love, after all, didn't ask for permission. It didn't choose an appropriate time or ideal circumstances. It just happened, and when it happened for real, all that was left was to accept it and build something beautiful with it. That was exactly what Arthur and Ellie were about to do. News of the relationship between Arthur and Ellie spread like wildfire, first among the house staff, who celebrated discreetly, then among Arthur's family, who had mixed reactions, and finally, inevitably, it reached the social circles of New York's elite, generating gossip and unsolicited opinions. The first difficult reaction came from Arthur's aunt, Helena Sterling, a woman in her 70s who had always held influence in the family. She appeared at the mansion unannounced on a Saturday morning, wearing a beige suit and a disapproving expression. "Arthur, we need to talk." She didn't even greet Ellie, who was in the living room playing with the triplets. "In private." "Aunt Helena, anything you have to say, you can say in front of Ellie. She's part of this family." "That's exactly what I need to talk about." Helena sat on the sofa, her back straight, perfect posture. "I heard that you two are romantically involved. Is this true?" "It is," Arthur confirmed, sitting next to Ellie and taking her hand. "We're together." Helena closed her eyes as if praying for patience. "You understand how this looks, don't you? You've barely divorced that grifter, and you're already with another employee. People will talk, they'll say you have a pattern, that you take advantage of women in vulnerable positions. With all due respect, Mrs. Sterling, Ellie spoke, her voice firm despite her nervousness, I am not vulnerable, and Arthur didn't take advantage of anything. We fell in love working together, taking care of the children. It was natural and honest. My dear, you're too young to understand. Helena looked at her condescendingly. Relationships between different classes rarely work out. You come from different worlds. You have different values, different expectations. And yet we work very well together, Arthur defended. Ellie understands my sons better than anyone from my social class ever did. She's worked hard her entire life. She knows the value of things. She's not here for the money. How can you be so sure? Victoria also seemed dedicated at first. Victoria was acting from day one. Ellie risked her life to save my sons. Did you see the evidence? Did you watch the videos? Did you see what she did? Helena was quiet for a moment, then sighed. I'm not saying she's a bad person, just that you two should take it slow. Think about the consequences, about what's best for the children. The best thing for the children is to have people who love them, taking care of them, Arthur said firmly. And Ellie loves them, I love her, and I'm not going to hide that or be ashamed of it to please some society. After Helena left, visibly displeased, Ellie collapsed onto the sofa. Is it always going to be like this? People judging, questioning? Probably, Arthur sat beside her. But there will also be people who support us, who understand, like Mrs. Davis, like George, like Robert from the Fathers Group. And your family? Some will accept it, others won't. But my sons are my priority, and you're a part of that now. The following weeks brought more challenges. A cousin of Arthur's declined a dinner invitation when he learned Ellie would be there. An old family friend made nasty comments on social media about rich men who'd change wives like they change cars. And there was even an article in a gossip magazine speculating about financial motives. But there was also unexpected support. The elderly neighbor Ellie had met in the garden sent flowers with a card. True love recognizes no social class. Be happy. Robert from the Fathers Group organized a barbecue to introduce Ellie to the other members, who welcomed her with hugs and stories of how they had also faced prejudice. And surprisingly, 3 of Arthur's younger cousins sent messages of support, saying they thought it was beautiful to see their uncle happy again. The biggest challenge, however, came from within Ellie herself. One night after putting the boys to bed, she was particularly quiet. Arthur noticed. What are you thinking about? All of this. She gestured around at the luxurious mansion. Sometimes I wake up and I can't believe it. A year ago I was delivering food in the rain, living in a cramped apartment with no heating. And now I'm here in this huge house dating a millionaire. It feels surreal. Does it bother you? Sometimes. Not the house or the money itself, but the fear. She looked at him with vulnerability. Fear of not being good enough, of not knowing how to behave in the places you go, of embarrassing you. Arthur took her hands. Ellie, you saved my sons when I was failing miserably as a father. You stood up to a dangerous woman to protect children you barely knew. You worked 3 jobs simultaneously to care for your sick mother. You are the strongest, bravest, most principled person I know. How could you ever embarrass me? But I don't know how to use formal dinnerware. I don't know about expensive wines. I've never traveled outside the country. And I didn't know how to change a diaper until you taught me. I didn't know how to get a baby to sleep or prepare baby food. We each have our skills. We learn from each other. What if your family never accepts me? Then that's their problem, not ours. Arthur pulled her closer. I built this entire fortune, this social standing, thinking that's what would bring happiness. And I was more miserable and empty than ever. Now with you and my sons, living a simpler life in many ways, I'm truly happy. I'm not giving that up for the approval of people who value appearances over substance. To help Ellie feel more confident, Arthur made some decisions. First, he hired a private social etiquette tutor, not to change who Ellie was, but to give her the tools to feel comfortable in any environment. Then he enrolled her in an online business administration course, something she had always wanted to do but never had the opportunity. You don't have to study to please me, he clarified, but I know you've always wanted to. Now you have the time and resources." Ellie cried when she received the course materials. It was a dream she had buried years ago, considering it impossible. The couple's social life was modest but meaningful. They avoided high society events, preferring intimate dinners with true friends. They took the triplets to public parks, not exclusive clubs. They attended the community church, not the cathedral where the elite showed off. It was during one of these church visits that they met Father Michael, a man in his 50s who immediately took a liking to the family. "It's a beautiful thing to see," he said after Mass. "True love, a family built with purpose. It's not common these days." "We're trying to do it right," Arthur admitted, "even when we don't know exactly what right is. No one ever knows completely, but you have something important, genuine intention. The rest is built over time." One day, coming back from a pediatrician's appointment, Ellie and Arthur took the boys for ice cream at a simple neighborhood shop. As they were wiping the triplets' sticky mouths, a woman approached. "Excuse me." She was young, about 25. "You're Ellie, right? I saw your story online." "I am," Ellie replied, tensing. She never knew if these encounters would be positive or negative. "I just wanted to say thank you." The young woman had tears in her eyes. "My niece was in a similar situation, a stepmother who mistreated her. But no one believed it. When your story broke, my sister found the courage to report it too. Now the little girl is safe with her biological mother." Ellie stood up and hugged the woman, both of them crying. "I'm so happy. She's okay. You gave a voice to so many people. You showed that it's possible to fight, that it's possible to win. Thank you." After the woman left, Arthur looked at Ellie with admiration. "Do you realize the impact you've had? How many children have been saved because you were brave? I just did what was right." "Exactly, and a lot of people don't. That's why you're special." That night, Arthur surprised Ellie with something special. He led her to the garden where he had set up an outdoor cinema. A blanket on the lawn, a projector showing a movie. On an improvised screen, popcorn and hot chocolate. "What is this?" "A real date." Ellie sat on the blanket, leaning against him. "I realized that with all the chaos, we've never had a traditional date. We're always with the boys or working. I like being with the boys." "Me too, but we deserve moments just for us as well." They watched the movie in each other's arms, interrupted only when Mrs. Davis appeared to say that Oliver had woken up. Arthur went to check, returning 20 minutes later. "He was thirsty. I gave him some water and he went back. To sleep." "You're getting good at this," Ellie praised. "I had a good teacher." Later, as the stars shone above, Arthur grew serious. "Ellie, I know all of this happened fast. A year ago, you didn't even know me. Now we're raising 3 children together, living in the same house, building a life. If you need time or space—" "I don't," she interrupted him. "I know it's fast, but it feels right. Like everything I went through before was preparing me to get here. For these children, for you. I feel the same, as if Clara prepared me, taught me, about true love, so that when you showed up I would recognize it." He kissed her forehead. "Do you believe in fate?" "I believe God puts people in the right place at the right time, and I'm exactly where I need to be." They stayed there late into the night, planning futures, dreaming dreams, building castles that weren't made of sand but of purpose and true love. Because in the end, it didn't matter what society said. It didn't matter who approved or disapproved. What mattered was this: 2 people who found each other in the midst of chaos, who built something beautiful from the wreckage, who chose every day to keep choosing each other. And 3 little boys who would have the chance to grow up knowing that family isn't about DNA or social contracts or others' expectations. It's about love, commitment, and showing up every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. 9 months later, on a sunny October afternoon, Arthur had a surprise for Ellie. The triplets were with Helen and Mrs. Davis, finally giving the couple a few hours alone. Arthur blindfolded Ellie and led her through the garden. "Where are we going?" she asked, laughing nervously. "You'll see, just a few more steps." When he removed the blindfold, Ellie was speechless. There, where there had once been only grass and a few trees, now stood a beautiful building, a small but charming coffee shop with glass walls, A wooden deck and cozy tables and chairs. A sign hanging on the door read, "Sophie's Cafe." "Arthur," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "What is this?" "It's yours." He opened the door, revealing the interior. Professional equipment, an industrial oven, an espresso machine, shelves for pastries, all brand new, all perfect. "Remember you said you always dreamed of having your own business? That your grandmother had a little shop you loved to help at when you were a little girl?" Ellie walked through the space, touching every surface as if it were too fragile to be real. A full kitchen, a service area, even a small children's library in the corner with colorful cushions. "I thought you could run it from here," Arthur followed her, anxious. "Hire people from your neighborhood, like Jessica and Amanda already work at the house. Offer breakfast and lunch to the neighborhood. Host community events, whatever you think is best. But I don't know anything about running a business. That's why I enrolled you in that management course, remember?" He smiled. "And I'll be here to help with the financial side. But the decisions are yours, completely yours." Ellie turned to him, her face wet with tears. "Why Sophie's Cafe?" "Because your sister deserves to be remembered, and because everything you do comes from the love you had for her, from the desire that other children don't suffer what she suffered. This cafe can be more than a business. It can be a community support hub, a place where mothers from the Bronx can come for coffee while their kids play in the library, where we can offer free pediatric consultations once a month, where the profits are reinvested in helping those who need it." She hugged him tightly, sobbing on his shoulder. All the emotions from all the difficult years finally finding an outlet. Someone not only recognized her worth, but invested in her, believed in her dreams, honored her pain by turning it into something beautiful. "Thank you. I don't even know how to thank you. Seeing you happy is thanks enough." In the following weeks, Ellie dove into the project. She hired 5 people from the Bronx, all women who needed steady employment. She developed a menu with recipes from her childhood: Helen's cornbread, a neighbor's coffee cake, empanadas she learned to make with her grandmother, strong, sweet coffee like the kind they drank on the streets of her neighborhood, good, simple, honest food. The grand opening was on a Saturday, with the whole community invited. People from the Bronx getting off buses, curious neighbors from the Upper East Side, family, friends, staff, 2 different worlds mixing naturally around shared tables and delicious food. Father Michael blessed the space, saying a prayer about purpose and second chances. Helen cried throughout the opening speech Ellie gave, and the triplets, now almost 2, ran through the space, shouting excitedly, testing every chair, every corner. "This is your legacy," Arthur said, watching it all. "Not just the cafe, but what it represents: unity, hope, proof that it's possible to change your life without forgetting where you came from." Sophie's Cafe quickly became a success, not just for the food, but for the welcoming atmosphere. Ellie knew half the customers by name. She asked about their children, remembered their preferences, offered hugs when she saw someone sad. It was more than a cafe. It was a community, and it fulfilled Arthur's promise. Once a month, volunteer pediatricians provided free consultations in the space. Mothers brought their babies for checkups they couldn't afford. Ellie made sure no one left without a meal, whether they could pay or not. She created a pay-it-forward coffee system where customers could pay for an extra coffee for someone in need. "You're changing lives," the volunteer nurse said after a day of consultations. 3 children received important diagnoses today, one with a heart murmur that needs monitoring, another with an unidentified food allergy. If they hadn't been seen here, their parents would never have known. "That's what it's here for," Ellie replied simply, "so that no child goes through what Sophie went through." As the cafe flourished, the family also grew and strengthened. Arthur reduced his work hours even further, delegating more responsibilities to trusted managers. He wanted to be present for every milestone of his sons. James taking his first steady steps, Thomas speaking his first full sentences, Oliver learning to share toys. They established family routines, breakfast together every day, stories before bed, a trip to the park every Sunday, dinner with Helen every Friday. Nothing extravagant but consistent, present, real. Arthur's family slowly began to accept Ellie. First the younger cousins, then some of the uncles. Aunt Helena took the longest, but she finally showed up at Sophie's cafe one afternoon and asked to talk. "I was wrong about you," she admitted, stirring her coffee. "I've seen how Arthur has changed, how present he is with the boys, how happy he is. And I've visited your cafe. I've seen the work you do in the community. You are not an opportunist. You are a genuinely good person. Thank you for saying that. And I apologize for my prejudice." Helena looked down at her own hands. "I come from a generation that valued appearances and status too much. It took me a while to understand that character is more important than a bank account." It was a turning point. With the family matriarch accepting Ellie, others followed. Invitations to family events started to arrive. Some were still cool, but others were genuinely warm. A year after the cafe's opening, Arthur had another surprise. At a special dinner at home with all the staff present, he knelt in front of Ellie. "I know we don't do things traditionally. Our story hasn't followed a conventional script, but I don't want conventional. I want you. I want to wake up every day knowing we're building this together. I want to make what's already real. Official." He opened a small box with a simple but beautiful ring. "Will you marry me, Ellie?" She looked around, Helen crying with joy, Mrs. Davis and George smiling, Jessica and Amanda holding up their phones, recording, and the triplets not fully understanding but feeling the emotion, clapping their little hands. "Yes. Of course, yes." The kiss was met with applause and cheers. James started jumping, which got Thomas and Oliver going. In seconds, everyone was dancing in the living room, an impromptu party filled with genuine joy. "Let's have a simple wedding," Ellie said later. "No huge high society party." "Whatever you want." Arthur kissed her forehead. "We can get married at Sophie's cafe if you'd like." "Actually, I think I have the perfect idea," and she did. 2 weeks later, in an intimate ceremony in the mansion's garden, Arthur and Ellie were married. Father Michael officiated. Only close family and true friends were present. Ellie wore a simple dress that cost $200 at a thrift store, but she was radiant. Arthur cried during his vows. "I promise to be the man you taught me to be. Present, brave, true. I promise to honor not just you, but everything you represent. Your strength, your kindness, your enormous heart. I promise to keep challenging you to be better, to never settle, to always remember what truly matters. And I promise to love your sons as if they were my own, because they already are." When Father Michael pronounced them husband and wife, James shouted "Daddy," Thomas shouted "Ellie," and Oliver just shouted for the sake of shouting. Everyone laughed, and it was the perfect moment. Not polished, not choreographed, just real. The reception was at Sophie's cafe, with food that Ellie prepared with her own hands, helped by Mrs. Davis and Helen. Live music was played by musicians from the community, simple decorations with flowers from the garden, and people from all worlds mingling naturally. At some point in the evening, Ellie found Arthur on the cafe's porch looking at the stars. "What are you thinking about?" "About how strange life is. 2 years ago I was at the lowest point of my life. A widower, lost, failing as a father, married to a woman who was planning to destroy my family. And now," he pulled her closer, "now I'm happier than I ever imagined possible." Funny. I think the same thing. 2 years ago I was delivering food in the rain, wondering if life would ever get better. And now I have a family, a business, a purpose. Do you believe everything happens for a reason? I believe bad things happen, but we can choose what to do with them. To turn pain into purpose, to turn loss into love. Arthur kissed her gently. "Thank you for saving me, for saving my sons, for showing me how to truly live. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." They returned to the party hand in hand, ready to dance, to celebrate, to live every moment of this hard-won joy, because they finally understood. Happiness doesn't come from having everything perfect. It comes from finding people who stay when things get hard. It comes from building something real even when the world says it won't work. It comes from choosing love every single day in all the small decisions. And they were choosing every day forever. A year after the wedding, on a spring morning, the Sterling mansion woke to the characteristic noise of small children. James, Thomas, and Oliver, now 3 years old, ran down the hallway laughing and shouting, playing tag before breakfast had even started. Ellie was in the kitchen making pancakes when she felt 3 pairs of little arms wrap around her legs simultaneously. She looked down to see 3 smiling faces looking up at her. "Mommy, we're hungry," James announced, using the dramatic tone. That always made her laugh. "Mommy, Thomas pushed me," Oliver complained, though he was smiling. "I did not, Mommy," Thomas defended himself. Mommy. The word still caught her off guard sometimes, filling her heart to bursting. They had started calling her that naturally a few months ago. No one forced it, no one taught them. It just happened. And every single time, without fail, Ellie felt tears well up. "Good morning, my loves." She bent down and kissed each of their foreheads. "The pancakes are almost ready. Go wash your hands." They ran off, still chasing each other. Arthur appeared. In the doorway, his tie half done, trying to button his shirt and hold a briefcase at the same time. "I need some help here." Ellie tied his tie, a morning ritual that had become intimate and special. "Big meeting today?" "The most important. I'm officially announcing that I'm stepping down as CEO. I'll just be on the board, 2 meetings a month. I want to dedicate the rest of my time to the family and the social project we're setting up." The social project was the couple's newest initiative. Using part of Arthur's fortune, they were building a community center in the Bronx. It would have after-school tutoring, a library, sports and cultural activities, and free basic medical care. Ellie would be the general coordinator. It was the realization of a dream she didn't even know she had. "Are you sure about this?" Ellie asked. "It's a huge decision. It'll completely change your lifestyle." "It already has, and for the better." Arthur kissed her. "I spent years building a financial empire, thinking that would make me happy. But true happiness was in building a family, in making a real difference in people's lives. The numbers in a bank account don't matter if they don't do anything meaningful." The triplets returned, their hands wet because they had clearly played with the water more than actually washed. They sat at the table, each in his usual spot. James always on the left, Thomas in the middle, Oliver on the right. Family breakfast had become sacred. No matter what, they all sat together, talked about their day, planned activities. It was simple, but it's what made that house a true home. "Daddy is taking you to the park this afternoon," Ellie announced, serving pancakes. "What do you think?" "Yay!" the 3 shouted in unison, then began to argue about which park toy was best. The slide no, the swing no, the merry-go-round. "You can play on all of them," Arthur intervened, laughing. "We have time." After breakfast, while Arthur took the boys to get dressed, Ellie tidied the kitchen. Mrs. Davis appeared, smiling that wise smile of someone who has seen it all. "Look how things have changed. I remember when this house was as quiet as a tomb. Now it has life. It has love." "Sometimes I still can't believe I'm living this," Ellie confessed. "It feels like a dream." "It's real, my child, and you deserve every second of it." Mrs. Davis took her hand. "You saved those boys, you saved Arthur, and in the process, you saved yourself too." Ellie went to Sophie's cafe around 10. It was already busy. Tables were full of neighbors, mothers with babies enjoying the kids' corner, students using the free library. Jessica was at the counter serving, Amanda in the kitchen preparing pastries. "Boss," Jessica waved, "we got a big order for the school event tomorrow. 100 pastries, 3 cakes, juice." "Perfect, I'll go help Amanda prepare." They worked together all morning, talking, laughing, sharing stories. It was more than work, it was therapy, it was purpose, it was contribution. A regular customer, Mrs. Sophia, an elderly woman who lived in the neighborhood, approached with her baby granddaughter. "Ellie, dear, I want to thank you. My granddaughter was seen here last month at the free clinic. The doctor discovered she had a hearing problem. Now she's getting treatment. She's already improved so much." "I'm so happy to hear that, Mrs. Sophia. You have no idea what a difference this place makes. Before we had nowhere to go, no one cared. Now we have you." After lunch, Ellie returned home to find Arthur in the garden with the 3 boys. They were having a picnic, a blanket spread on the grass, fruit and sandwiches scattered about. The boys' clothes were dirty with mud, their hair messy, their mouths stained with strawberries. Perfect. "Mommy!" James ran and threw himself into her arms. "Daddy let us make a sandcastle in the garden." "I see that." She laughed, wiping dirt from the boy's face. "You're all going to need a bath." "Later, Mummy," Thomas pleaded. "We're still playing." "All right. 30 more minutes." Ellie sat on the blanket, next to Arthur, watching her sons play. Thomas was teaching Oliver how to stack blocks. James was narrating a story about dinosaurs to an imaginary audience. "Look what we've built," Arthur said softly. "Not just a house, but a real family, based on love, not appearances. They're so happy." "They are. And that's all that matters." Arthur took her hand. "I think about Clara a lot. I know she would be proud of how the boys are growing, of how I finally learned to be the father she wanted me to be. She gave her life to bring them into the world. Our job is to make sure they grow up knowing that, honoring that sacrifice. And they will know. We'll tell them about her, about how special she was, how she loved them even before they were born. You're not replacing her, Ellie. You're continuing the love she started." Tears streamed down Ellie's face. It was a beautiful and necessary truth. At that moment, Oliver tripped and fell, scraping his knee. He started to cry. Both Ellie and Arthur stood up at the same time, but it was to her that Oliver ran. "Mommy, it hurts," she picked him up, cleaned the scrape, kissed his knee, whispered words of comfort. Oliver quickly calmed down, snuggling into her arms. Arthur watched with tears in his eyes. There was the living proof. Those boys didn't just accept Ellie. They genuinely loved her. They saw her as their mother, not because someone told them to, but because she proved it every single day. At night, after dinner and the bath routine, the 3 boys were in their room. Arthur and Ellie were reading stories before bed, a book about forest animals that the boys loved. "Mummy, will you always be here?" James asked suddenly with the seriousness that small children sometimes show. "Always, my love. Mommy's not going anywhere." "And Daddy too." "Daddy too," Arthur confirmed. "We're all together. A family." "Forever?" Oliver wanted to know. "Forever," Ellie promised, kissing each of them on the forehead. After the boys were asleep, the couple stood on the porch, as was their custom, looking at the stars, planning the future, reflecting on the past. "Have you ever thought about how different things would be if you hadn't walked into that house on that stormy night?" Arthur asked. "I do. But I think I was meant to. As if every choice in my life led me to that exact moment." "Me too. Every mistake I made, every bad decision, it all led to the point where I needed to be to recognize what really mattered when you showed up." Ellie snuggled against him. "You know what I think about all of it? About Victoria, the scandal, all the difficulties?" "What?" "That they were necessary. I'm not saying they were good, but they were necessary. Because they broke us in ways that allowed us to rebuild correctly. You needed to break to learn to be a real father. I needed to break to believe I deserved something better. And the boys, they deserved parents who had been broken and reassembled into something stronger. That's a beautiful way to see it. It's the only way that makes sense. Otherwise, all the pain was for nothing." They stayed there late under the stars, 2 survivors of different storms who had found a safe harbor in each other. And when they finally went inside, checking on the boys one last time before bed, they saw 3 serene faces, soft breaths, innocent dreams. James was sleeping, hugging a stuffed dinosaur. Thomas's little hand was intertwined with Oliver's through the bars of the cribs that would soon be replaced by bigger beds. 3 lives saved. 3 bright futures. 3 reasons to believe in second chances. Ellie looked at Arthur, and he at her. They didn't need to say anything. Everything was there, in that moment. The proof that true love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up every day. It's about choosing repeatedly to do the right thing even when it's hard. It's about turning wreckage into solid foundations. And together they had built not just a family, they had built a legacy. of courage, of redemption, of a love that overcomes any obstacle when it is genuine and determined. The lights of the house went out one by one. The mansion that was once a golden prison was now a sanctuary of joy. And as the city slept outside, within those walls, 5 hearts beat in sync. A family, not perfect, not traditional, but absolutely, unquestionably real. The end.